What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 699 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk Hot Tags of the Week. You know how this goes. We are going to break down everything we feel like talking about that happened in the world of pro wrestling over the past few days, whether it's news, or it's scuttlebutt, or it is gossip, or injury reports, unfortunately, or anything else along those lines, including TV recaps and stuff. Who are we? If you don't know, I am Tony Mongo, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert E. Felice.
Hello.
And of course, we always want to know what you have to say as we go along here. So whatever listening platform you are on, leave a comment, put something out there on Facebook, on Twitter, blah, 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 whatever it might be. If you want to hop on over to our Discord service, we have the server over there. It has a bunch of different channels on there where you can either like fantasy book stuff, where you can post stuff while like the TV shows are going on, or just post a meme, whatever it might be. And even when it comes to the voice chat thing, we just recently did a Darkcast where we had the floodgates open and tested out a little idea that going forward we might do a little bit more often, might tweak it, I don't know, see what happens. But it was great to talk to Chris and have Wago just pop up, for a random thing, called in on his iPhone and chatted for a little bit. So the Darkcast here is one of those many different things that you can help support us. And if you can't really do anything on the monetary side of things, there are free versions of ways that you can help us out. Hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring that notification bell, get those email alerts for when we go live for things. And of course, leave a comment below with your different thoughts on YouTube as well. But if you do have a little spare change, click the join button over on YouTube for the channel membership access. And if you are over on Patreon, go to patreon.com/smarkoutmoment. Click on the thanks button that's on there too. If you want to be on like the pick your poison tier or something, they're all the same when it comes to those two different platforms. Redbubble and TeePublic is also where you can pick up your merchandise if you want to help us out that way. So that stuff's out of the way. Let's start getting into hot tag time. And one of those things to talk about is something we haven't been talking about quite as much as of late, but we are at the end of a season for the Fantasy League. So this is, I don't know, like the 11th year or something, it seems, that we've been doing this. We've been doing it for quite a while. And if you want to check out the full scope of like who has won over the different years and everything, you can check that out by going to the Smark Out Moment fandom wiki, smark-out-moment.fandom.com, I think is what it is, where there's a breakdown of like who won all the different seasons for the different rankings. Last season was season 9. I thought it was something close to that. From Backlash 2024 to WrestleMania 41 is the one that we're on right now. So, Callum, give us some things if you got some updates on that.
Yeah, so I can furnish everyone with the final scores now that everything's been tabulated, and it was quite an interesting season in that it started off like I was going to run away with it. To a degree. Yeah. I'd gone off for the first half of the year. I'd gone up to a massive lead, but my big falling point was that I just couldn't win predictions contests. Arguably, I'm a bit of a disadvantage because I don't watch the shows anymore, so it probably doesn't help in that regard. But yeah, I just couldn't win any prediction contest, and so that meant that I was losing out on advantages. Rob and Tony kept picking up like either double points or just getting some people, being able to swap my people out of my team when I didn't have a choice about it. So eventually that started to take its toll. And going into WrestleMania weekend, Rob was leading the way. I was in second place, and Tony was a bit behind, but not insurmountably so. His crew had a good WrestleMania weekend. So it came down to, in terms of just like overall points, there was less than 60 points between first and third.
Wow,
which is pretty good going, considering we're all well into the 4 digits. So it's a pretty close season. So I guess it kind of worked out well in that regard.
That's a big difference compared to some previous seasons too, because I'm looking at the rankings from before. First and third last year was 1611 to 1048. The year before that was 1908 to 1511. The year before that was 1800 to 682. So 60 points is very close compared to what used to be between 2 to 600. points difference.
Yeah. And the most, and also what's quite interesting, just for people that don't know the scores yet, or we're trying to figure out, Rob had the worst WrestleMania weekend, and Tony had the best WrestleMania weekend in terms of points scored. So he could have flipped everything around potentially. So here are the final scores, which I'll also update onto the website on the Fantasy League 24-25 season. If you want to check that out on the website and just see all the standings and all the points and how things shaped out throughout the year, you can check it all out there. In third place with 1,179 points, Tony Mango. Couldn't quite claw it back by the end of it.
First place last year, last place this year, but
Yeah, despite both John Cena and Jacob Fatu and Stephanie Vicaire and Seth Rollins getting big wins, and Drew McIntyre, like you got plenty of guys and girls that got victories over WrestleMania weekend. It just wasn't enough to claw back the deficit. And then we have in the top two, second place scored 1,212 points, or the good old 1-2-1-2, as we like to call it. And the other, and the winner scored 1,234, the good old 1-2-3-4. Yeah, that was quite funny that they both ended up quite lyrical numbers, if you want to call it that. In second place, myself on 1-2-1-2. So that means that Rob is the victor of the old 1-2-3-4. Like his lead was just too good, and he could thank primarily for this weekend Obafemi for securing him the victory, because of the double points that he had already put on him, and WrestleMania weekend is double points, so he got 4 times the amount of points that he would have otherwise got for Obafemi, which is good because Gunther lost his title, Bianca Belair didn't win the title, Solo Sikoa didn't wrestle, Bayley was kicked off the card entirely.
Big shock.
Roxanne didn't win the title at Stand Deliver.
Big shock, yeah.
Finn Balor didn't win the Intercontinental title. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez surrendered their tag team championships, at least on that show.
Yeah,
and Chelsea Green didn't make the card. So really, it was all down to Obafemi that saved you there, and having a double points on him. If you'd put double points on either Bayley or Roxanne or anyone like that, then you probably would have fallen short.
Realistically, that's not a bad lineup, because all of those people, when you look at the year beforehand, should have been doing something and potentially winning something. But Obafemi, I knew would kind of carry me through once he won that NXT title, and blessed, because he did. He carried me all the way through, and I thank the ruler for that, and I'm glad to have clawed back from last year's embarrassing defeat.
It's
a few things.
Again of a situation of like WrestleMania just barely put somebody over the lead. It all comes down to Mania.
Well, this time it should have it's actually the decisive factor was probably the Elimination Chamber and the fallout from that, because after Elimination Chamber, the one thing that would have absolutely swung it in my direction is that Rob forced me to eliminate Io Sky from my team.
If
I had Io Sky, then I would have won, because I definitely would have got rid of Shinsuke Nakamura, who did absolutely nothing leading into did absolutely nothing except cost me 9 points leading into WrestleMania. So again, that wouldn't have been enough on its own, but having Yosuke on there, I think, would have been the difference. So that was probably the most decisive move at the end of it. But that's like a pretty close run thing overall. So yeah, Rob gets to have his victory moment, and yeah, we'll see what you decide to do next time around.
So this is the same rankings as season 6, where it's Rob, Callum, Tony, which there's a little bit of a trend going on here, it seems. I'm looking at the breakdown. It seems if I do poorly, Rob does very well. And then Callum's in kind of the middle for all those all the past like 5 years that we've done it. And that becomes whoever is like duking it out with Callum. If they make the right call for WrestleMania, that's what could potentially put them over the edge. And then if they make the wrong call, then Callum wins. It's like that's what we got going on.
Yeah, I don't pull out enough of the lead to really stand out too much. I'm always like, to be fair, I'm just because I'm the one that runs the fantasy league as well. I have a vested interest to try and make it interesting, so I have to not blow you guys out of the water.
Oh, that's what's happening. Do you have any ideas of like any kind of tweaks or different variations or anything you might want to do for another season?
So I always like to mix it up, so it's not going to be the same format as it is this year. One thing that I am toying about for next year's one is I'm still figuring out some bits and pieces about it, but the thing that I'm definitely going to implement that I thought about is we're going to instead of having like one trade per or a couple of trades or however many per pay-per-view cycle. Next year's one, there's going to be a set number of trades for the year. So I don't know what that number is just yet, whether it's like 15, 10, 20, I don't know how many. But essentially, any point in time, I'd say probably once per week, I'm probably going to just send a message to these guys, or we'll get when we're on the podcast or whatever, I can just mention to them, do you want to use one of your trades, or two of your trades, or 5, 6, 7 of your trades in 1 week if you wanted to. But essentially, there's going to be a hard limit on the number of trades that you can make per year over the course of the year to try and make it a bit more tactical about when you switch things over. Because you could decide, okay, this person's going to be on this big show coming up and they might win a title, so I'm going to swap them in now. Or like, oh, this person's got badly injured, I've got to swap them out. And things going to be out for a while, so I'm going to have to swap them around as well, just to try and just make it a bit more tactical over the year. And then if people win pay-per-view predictions contest, they might be able to win some more trades back. But again, I haven't worked out the final details, but that's definitely one thing that I'm going to implement. I'm also probably going to implement like a fixed number of people. So rather than like 2 years ago, we were adding people to our roster, and this year we were taking away people from the roster. I think it's going to be like a solid, again, however many it's going to be, probably somewhere between like 10 and 15 people on each of our rosters, and just going to stay like that for the remainder of the time. But so as I say, a few changes to format. I just don't like sticking to the same format, because essentially after it sounds really good and exciting at the start of it, but then you're stuck with the same format for a year and you get kind of bored of it, so you have to switch it around. Even if the format is good, you kind of go, yeah, but I've done it now, I need something different. So that'll be the approach next time.
No, we don't necessarily have a game plan yet of exactly when we're going to do a draft, but
presumably before Backlash.
Yeah, we usually start with Backlash.
That's the starting point, is usually the first pay-per-view show of the year. So, and there's no I say the draft all of this year we can try and figure out, because we didn't do any WrestleMania pay-per-view predictions. So we can just go, maybe we'll do like Tony was last place, so he gets the first pick this time around, and we'll do reverse. And we'll do it snake style anyway, so it's not like there'll be a massive advantage one way or the other. But something to keep an eye on in the future. But it will be sometime in the next couple of weeks we decide to get our teams together again.
Backlash is on the 10th of May, so probably sometime next week or so we'll probably do it. And whenever we decide to do it, it's not going to be something that's going to be like I think that most of the time that we've done the drafts, they've been like 20 minutes or so for us to record. But we'll probably do it as a live special, so people can kind of maybe be like, the next person's got to pick so-and-so or something like that. So if you have any ideas about like, I'd love to tune in and I would really like to be there for like a live draft or something, and Tuesday afternoons are better for me than Wednesdays or something like that, then let us know, because we'll try to factor that in there too. I didn't do the scheduled main event of like Fantasy Booking WrestleMania 42 for this week, mostly because I was just like, I'm so tired, and then partially because I didn't really like what I had on my spreadsheets. But that's probably going to be, I guess, the game plan for next week. I'll do that separate video thing, and then we'll probably do like the Fantasy League draft or something. So again, drop your comments. Let us know what you've got in mind for that. Let us know who you think that we should be like trying to pick up, as far as like, whoever gets the first pick should definitely grab Jacob Fatu, or, nobody should come anywhere close to this person because they're definitely going to get fired or whatever it might be. But congrats to Callum for pulling out the congrats to Rob for pulling out the
did you try to erase my victory?
I was just looking at the list, and the Callum's name was the top thing, so I was just reading that. Congrats to Rob for winning the Fantasy League. Congrats to Callum for second place. Congrats to Tony for failing. Anyway, that's one of the hot tags. Now, of course, we got the other stuff that we got to talk about that are like the newsy things beyond Smark at moment. Some of the stuff we talked about at least a little bit in some capacity through WrestleMania talk or Darkcast talk or anything, and some other things we haven't touched on at all yet. One of them being that on WrestleMania Saturday, on the pre-show, WWE announced that they have acquired AAA and that there will be a Worlds Collide event happening on the same day as Money in the Bank, which that's very annoying. I hate when they do that. And we've had like multiple things coming up this year that it's going to be like 3 pay-per-views on the same 2 days of a weekend or the same 2 pay-per-views at the same time or whatever it might be. And it seems like this is going to be kind of the same situation as like the Stand and Deliver heading into WrestleMania type of thing, where they're going to start in the afternoon and then it's just going to carry on in the rest of the night. No real details as far as the exact setup of this Worlds Collide thing, but it is going to feature WWE talent and NXT talent and AAA talent. If you can say that AAA even has a whole lot of talent to use, because their roster is not big. And there are people that are in other companies that I would assume might not necessarily be allowed to do those shows the exact same way as everybody else. And then there are plenty of people who I don't see any value to having whatsoever. And then there is at least one name that I can think of that I would hope they would have the sensibility to not book on their card. You guys know who that guy is. The only positive,
their world champion.
Yeah, the only positive would be if he shits himself in the ring and finally does that. I have never seen a AAA show, and I have never even used AAA as a service. But the general perspective that I seem to see from everybody is that this is one of the absolute worst promotions that is out there right now. And that WWE shouldn't have paid more than like a couple bucks for it, basically. I think from that perspective and from the little bits and pieces that I can see and the reports that I'm reading and all, it almost kind of feels to me like they're paying for Vikingo's contract and for the ability to use this platform as NXT Mexico.
So first of all, I think it's a little more than just Vikingo. I think Vikingo is going to be the major breakout star, but I think this is also, maybe they don't want to do, hey, let's do NXT, Europe, NXT Japan, NXT whatever the fuck. Maybe they want to just be like, hey, let's have these established promotions as, our home base in these countries or these parts of the world. And I think that's okay. And Monopoly bad, I think we can all agree on that. Monopoly bad. However, AAA going under, maybe time. Maybe, hey, they can put on shows with proper production now. I'm not as heartbroken by this because of the fact that AAA shows have been so messy in, the past, decade plus. So I'm not heartbroken by them getting a boost from being purchased by WWE. As far as the overall health to the industry, that's a separate point entirely. But I think it's a positive for them. And I think it helps WWE have this whole expansion without having to be like, well, this is just NXT Mexico. because that was bound to struggle.
So I think that, as I say, the overall monopolization of the wrestling business is just a bad thing. It's a bad thing for everybody because it just waters down the evolution and the variety and diversity of the wrestling scene when you bring it all under one roof, one way or the other. Triple H said in his press conference that he wants to keep it like classic Lucha Libre, which immediately says to me that he's never watched a Triple A show in his life. Because the idea of AAA, and it's in its fundamental background, is that it was the competitor brand to CMLL, which is the longest running wrestling promotion, current day wrestling promotion in history. So they had to diversify their own product away from the Lucha Libre to be a bit different from CMLL. So it wasn't just like the two trying to compete with each other. AAA went into the more Americanized style, which is essentially what they're doing nowadays as well, only with a really bad roster and really poor creative behind it as well. And I find it quite funny, like Conan is probably like celebrating it right now, and he'll be out of a job probably in 6 months' time. Well, he'll have his own podcast. He'll have his podcast where he can talk about it, and probably won't have a go.
You don't think Master P can hook him up over at AEW?
Yeah, I think he might be waiting a while for that phone call. But as an overall thing, it's like I can understand why they're doing it. Expansion into Mexico, get to hands on the best talent that AAA have available. But I think it's a little bit. AAA doesn't have a great reputation among a lot of like the Mexican workers as well, outside the ones that actually obviously work there. CMLL is seen as the top promotion in Mexico in most people's eyes. They sell out Arena Mexico on a weekly basis, so there's not really any. There's no real prizes for guessing which one is like has the better reputation right now. And like the people that have said to you, Tony, like it's one of the worst wrestling promotions going right now. I think they're being quite generous by saying one of the worst. They're being quite generous with that one. I don't even think NWA is as bad as AAA.
Oh, really?
Right now, from a creative standpoint.
I mean, well, yeah, you might be right.
at least from like the main event scene, because their main event booking is so terrible and it's full of run-ins and false finishes and all of that other stuff. So, and to be fair, a lot of promotions these days are just leaning into that trope. So,
to be fair, I haven't watched the National Wrestling Alliance in nearly a year, so
they're better by the fact that they're more anonymous now. Their anonymity is making them better compared to a lot of other ones. And I'd say there's probably a lot of like indies, but in terms of like major wrestling promotions, AAA is probably, definitely one of, if not the worst right now.
AAA, I think, was tremendous in the 90s, and they ride that reputation through to today because people just think, oh, well, it's AAA. It's where Eddie and Ray and Hoovy and Gosis and all those people. And I think, as we often do, especially our generation, we forget that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, it seems like that should be like 10, 15. And then you're like, oh, wait, no. There are people that have kids that weren't born then.
I mean, I think that like less than a year ago, Satnam Singh was one of their tag team champions. with the Jinder Mahal. Yeah. And so
I'm looking at the roster page right now on two different things. On the SmackDown Hotel, fantastic website for roster stuff. They have 5 people listed. And it's Alberto Del Rio, it's Vikingo Laredo, Octagon Jr., and Extreme Tiger. Now, the Wikipedia page has a good amount more people, but I've never heard of most of these guys. And that's not just say like, oh, well, if Tony Mango hasn't heard about these people, then, then that's a big thing. Because, like, of course I wouldn't have heard about people that I don't watch. I thought by clicking on this one person's name that this was a situation where it was like, Sami Zayn being El Generico. I thought Nino Hamburguesa was like, okay, is that a luchador name for cheeseburger? And I guess there's a different hamburger out there. It's hamburger versus cheeseburger. We can make a tag team. They could be a Happy Meal. But like Panic Clown, Murder Clown, Dave the Clown, are they all fucking clowns?
Well, no. Here's where we get into the fun part is the clowns are like one of the top factions. People love Psycho Clown, and I don't know about Dave the Clown, but I know people do love Psycho Clown and that whole thing, and they're actually, very famous and very good.
Dragon Bane sounds like a really terrible like cosplay thing. Somebody's like, I like dragons, and Bane's my favorite Batman villain or something. Forastero, never heard of Pagano or Sanson. I would probably not even pronounce
Pagano is also a clown.
Is half the roster a fucking clown? Jesus.
Well, I mean, look who's booking it. So
Arachno, I'm assuming Spider kind of influenced or something. Abysmo, is he abysmal? This doesn't seem like there would be all that much to like mine out of this, and without knowing, of course, maybe some of these people are fantastic. I don't know. Maybe Mysticis Jr. is like the fucking coolest dude. I don't know, or Mr. Iguana. Some of these names. Maybe Mr. Iguana would be my favorite person if I ever saw them on a thing, but. Maybe let me take back this Mysticis thing because I just saw that I guess he maybe abducted his own kid or something. So,
what?
Yeah, it's on the Wikipedia page about like an Amber Alert that like he.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah. So
that was one of the that was one of the uncomfortable things about the announcement.
The Stephanie McMahon thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that until people started to talk about it.
Well, I think people need to remember that she was in CMLL when she got signed by WWE. Yeah. So the reason why she used to work for AAA, and the reason why they're no longer there is because of the whole allegations against I can't remember the guy's name, but
I'm looking it up myself.
But the allegations against him, essentially abusing her, and then like the company protecting him, and then she has to come out there as the NXT Women's Champion, and I mean maybe in some way it's a satisfactory thing for her because now the company's been bought out by the company and the company she works for now, and so it feels like they've got their just desserts out of it. But other people say like, oh, this is going to be really good for AAA, so it's like, oh, is that good for her then? Like, or did she just have to be out there? That just did all of their Latino stars for this when most of them couldn't even get onto the WrestleMania card. Like, just that's what Andrade and Angel Garza and Humberto and all the other people, pretty much outside of the ones that were like involved in the El Grande Americano match. That's pretty much all they were doing at WrestleMania weekend.
Which, by the way, makes a lot more sense.
So, yeah, as I say, it's not. It doesn't set a good precedent for this if it's a long-term thing where like this is just the start for WWE, and they're going to be looking over at, oh, who can we pluck from which Japanese promotion can we just take, or multiple Japanese promotions can we take and put under our domain as well? Is there anybody else in North America? Are we going to actually just buy TNA and a few other places? Are we going to buy, like, I don't know, Progress or something like that in the UK and just make that our home there? I don't think it's...
I mean, we're waiting for NXT Europe, and that's just not happening, so buying Progress is progress.
But it's more about a case of, I don't want WWE to own a lot of the promotions around the world. In the same way, that's totally fine. That's just something that you should do in order to feed a healthy ecosystem. But you're actually owning the competition. It puts more onus onto, because if other those promotions are getting the WWE money and wealth, then they're going to start doing what WWE has done over the years, which is subjugate the promotions around them in order to establish a monopoly. So it puts even more pressure on the partnership between AEW, CMLL, New Japan, Stardom, Rev Pro, those groups to like be as tightly, like stay as tightly compacted as possible without, you know, I don't want Tony Khan to buy all those promotions and like run them in the same way. That's no better than what WWE are doing and potentially would be doing moving forward. I don't want like the entire global wrestling landscape to be run by two people. It's not a good mindset to be in at all. So, but yeah, but it puts more pressure on that potentially being a reality if WWE starts asserting more pressure through acquisitions. So, as I say, I don't think it's good as a long term for the wrestling industry, but it's probably good for WWE and AAA in their own little bubble. So
Now, do we think that, not saying this is how it'll actually play out, but do we think that the mindset is to try and make WWE more of an NWA-like hub, where, you know, it's all AAA and TNA and all these things stay themselves, but it's like WWE is like the governing body of that? Or what do you guys think? Because I know Triple H, he is a fan of the territory system, so he's not as like, I just want to kill my competition like Vince, but he also is Vince's son-in-law and did grow up under that, you know, umbrella.
I think it could be the case because look at how they treat NXT. It basically is, I mean, it basically is. It is a third brand similar to Raw and SmackDown, but they differentiate it enough that they try to make it seem like it's almost its own separate little mini company. And they've tried to do that since the start by making it be like, well, this isn't, like, they could have very easily made it to where instead of it's being NXT, that it's WWE Raw, WWE SmackDown, and WWE Evolve, even like how they, you know, could have given it a name like that. I think if he ends up facilitating the acquisition of any other company and it becomes like that there's like at least two, whether that's Noah or, I mean, The Rock had that New Japan shirt on, which kind of felt like a tease of something.
No.
And then there's the Progress, and then there's the TNA thing. Like, it seems inevitable that TNA is eventually going to be brought under that kind of banner. I could see it being like, we want separate companies that are all technically not separate, but we want to treat them like that, so that way it doesn't just feel like it's another WWE show. And if somebody wants to be a fan of that kind of stuff, then they can, but at the same time, it basically is. So I could see that kind of NWA approach being the case. And that might actually end up being how it stays AAA instead of being NXT Mexico. And it could stay TNA instead of being like, okay, well, TNA just goes under, and then we buy out some of those contracts, move those people over, and now there's no TNA Impact, but there's 7 people from that roster TNA that are in, you know, on Raw or something. I could see that being the case. And I am kind of anticipating that will happen with TNA and AAA at this point, at least.
For me, the question isn't really, I assume in most parts they will keep them somewhat separate and distinct. The big issue is that WWE exerting any kind of creative pressure on them is not good. Like, and that's like I would be all for them utilising their power to say, yeah, Alberto Patron, he's not only no longer your champion, we're gonna like bury him up to his neck in sand in the desert somewhere and just leave him. And if he can get out, he can get out. That's great. But yeah, I think that other than that change, I don't want to see them like saying, oh, this guy should be your champion right now if we're going to do this joint show. Like, this guy or this girl should be the champion. and you got to make that change now, or putting any sort of external, there's like pressure or like opinion that shapes directs their booking, because again, that's just basically WWE's okay for them to do their run-of-the-mill shows, like, okay, you're doing this show, that's fine, but in this one instance, we need you to do this. In that case, their autonomy's gone, and you're basically just a puppet of WWE. So yeah, I see mostly them maintaining their autonomy, but essentially all WWE has to do is snap their fingers, and they'll do something for them now.
So. Well, Borash is taking some kind of a creative role in AAA, and Gabe Sapolsky's running Evolve, and then they're eventually, when like it's going to happen with TNA at some point, somebody's going to end up being brought in. It's going to be like, all right, well, whether it's Scott D'Amore or it's I don't know who, but like somebody will do that. I
can see them buying Maple Leaf, or not buying Maple Leaf, but like working with Scott D'Amore and Maple Leaf.
Maybe something like that too. Like, I think that we could be in a situation where if WWE is pretty much at this point that it would be hard for them to fail, like just like for the company to go under. And if they expand and they have to kind of delegate responsibilities and delineate like who can be in charge of what, because there's no way that Triple H is doing creative for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Evolve, LFG, and AAA, and so on and so forth. So if he has kind of like the assistant managers, I guess he would have kind of approached them as, and like you're the, Callum, you're the history person. What was it like when people used to have like you weren't like a lord of like a certain county, but it was like in the
you're a baron or something.
Yeah, there's like some kind of a term that would be like that, where it's like, all right, you get the sheriff of Nottingham or something like that.
Oh yeah, you had like barons and marquises and people along those sort of lines. That it always like it divvies up towards, you could have people like be like stewards of regions and things along those lines. So there's always a pecking order that moves further and further down. So WWE could be on top of like, oh, that's the kingdom, the king surrounding it, and then you have all these other promotions which form part of their wider ecosystem. I understand that's totally what the plan is for them, and that's, as I say, I totally understand it from a business perspective why they're doing it, and so I'd almost like, if I was in their position, I would be advising them to do something like that. But now, because of someone who is outside of it, I can just say it's not healthy for the wrestling ecosystem as a whole. But they'll do what's best for them, because that's their priority, is to their only remit is to do what's best for WWE. So
I mean, it's their slogan, what's best for business.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's going to be
business in particular.
That's going to be something to pay attention to later in the year with the Worlds Collide thing, because I can't imagine there being like a whole lot of, wow, this is going to be really great to see those psycho clowns against our tag teams or whatever. I don't know if they're planning on like a specific card, or if they're like, well, we'll figure it out in May or whatever the hell this is. And or that's not in May, it'd have to be later than that. July,
I mean, I think Dom's going to defend the Intercontinental Championship. I think, Vikingo's going to have a big spot.
I would assume that the Lucha Bros will be on the card. If Ray is healthy, that Ray can do something. Maybe they'll do something with El Grande Americano if that's still around.
I think Ray, well, it's going to be around. I think it'll probably finish up there. I think Ray versus Dom and like a title versus mask would be sick. Worlds collide, because let's be real. I think, a lot of people think of Worlds Collide as this big thing, and the big takeaway from that show, for American fans at least, is the Eddie and Art Barr against Octagon and El Hijo del Santo, and great match. And I can definitely see Dom wanting to kind of pay tribute to that, since it is one of his favorite matches. So I see that happening on the card somewhere. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think that will be one weekend that I'm gonna genuinely enjoy most of what WWE delivers.
The NXT branding is being put out there as well for this. And I look at the NXT roster and I'm like,
Stephanie McCare.
so you're not throwing Hank and Tank on this. Like, you know, it's just going to be like, we got to celebrate Lucha Libre. So we've got Nico Vance and Tony D'Angelo on this card or something.
Well, why does it have to be a celebration of Lucha Libre? I thought the idea of like a Worlds Collide show is the idea that you're bringing the best of your style and your roster against the best of theirs. It's supposed to be you don't want, because I'd say, like, if you just say, oh, we're doing a AAA show, obviously you should put people like Dominic and Ray and Phoenix and Penta on that show because that's what the audience there is familiar with. But you should also be trying to demonstrate the best of what you've got to that audience, so you drag some like eyeballs that are watching AAA and you get them onto your product. Because I'd say there's probably a lot of people in Mexico that watch wrestling that only watch either CMLL or AAA or both. Don't ever like cast their eyes at all over onto American wrestling. So you should be trying to coax some of them over by showing, oh, cool, look at this giant guy, Obafemi. That's cool. Or see what, I mean, you've got Stephanie McCare as the women's champion as well, but she might be doing something with Julia or Jordan Grace on the show as well. Or she could be having a match with like one of their top female stars. So I think that, yeah, I'd say you're trying not to, like I say, it's got to be like a celebration of the Latino stars that you have, Mexican heritage as well, but it should also be
WWE
a Worlds Collide thing. Yeah, well, that's the thing.
I think it's a mistake that they're not branding TNA a part of this as well.
Maybe they will.
Well, they might do that in the future. It depends on how it goes, really. So
that's true.
Maybe they're kind of approaching that as like, well, we already mentioned NXT.
Well, maybe it's more along the lines of like, would saying that it's a TNA thing as well, would that add any more appeal to the show?
And would that also shoehorn it in there where they have to at that point then incorporate somebody from TNA? And then it's like that they might have to pay differently or something. Like, yeah. Maybe the only person that they're
the TNA stars travels over to there as well because TNA probably won't want to contribute to that side of things.
True. So Worlds Collide does happen on June 7th. It's 11:30 a.m. PT. They're just putting PT on everything nowadays. That's really
2 days after the Nintendo Switch comes out. I don't know if anybody got their Nintendo Switch, but I did not.
Yo.
Oh, fuck off. Did you really?
Of course I did.
Oh,
no tariffs here, baby.
Oh, yeah, you asshole. That's right. You live in a different country. Go to hell.
Got it on the day it became available on the Nintendo Store. Got my invitation to order it.
Oh, good for you.
Unfortunately, got there too late to get the bundle version of the Switch with Mario Kart World, but so I had to buy them both separately. So a little bit more expensive, but you know, I'll be playing that eventually. I'm very excited. It looks like a lot of fun.
You know, I would love to get a Nintendo Switch. I'd even offer to get it from somewhere overseas, like from my buddy Callum, but that would require more money in the bank, wouldn't you say, Tony?
I cannot express enough, and everybody knows our political opinions, how much I wish I was on the timeline where I would have been like, oh, of course I ordered that because that's relatively cheap enough and it makes perfect sense. And now I also ordered this and I also ordered that and the world is in a good spot. Yeah, you guys know who to blame for that and the people that voted in that direction. Grand Slam Mexico is happening in AEW. If we're talking about the Mexican promotions on here, that is going to be on June 18th. I was going to say 19th. AEW announced a couple different things recently. Like they're very much, we know that this is their kind of bread and butter, that they announce some kind of a TV special. It's usually either a Dynamite or a Collision or both. Like we got Beach Break coming up and we've got Fighter Fest was announced for June something or other. Let me just double check. It's June 4th. There's also going to be, though, Summer Blockbuster and then Grand Slam Mexico. Those aren't being labeled as Dynamite, which is interesting enough, even though they're both being on, like June 11th and June 18th are both Wednesdays. So I wonder what the distinction is for why Grand Slam Mexico is not AEW Dynamite Grand Slam Mexico, and why Summer Blockbuster is not AEW Dynamite Summer Blockbuster. There's got to be a reason for it.
Like how Collision Grand Slam Australia wasn't Collision, it was just AEW Grand Slam Australia.
So does that technically mean then that they would stop? It's like, well, that doesn't count as an episode of Dynamite.
So I guess it's just a play it by ear thing. We'll just see how they decide to aim it. They clearly think that the Grand Slam name has cachet to it. It gives it a sort of, I guess, in their mind, and maybe based on the returns they've got from it, they feel it's a strong brand on its own, a brand of shows. So they feel like it gives it a sense of, oh, this is a special show as compared to, like, a Common Garden episode of Dynamite. By calling both those shows Grand Slam shows, it makes them feel like, oh, this is something really special and something that I should be checking out. So I guess they'll technically, maybe in like the parentheses or something like that, they'll say their episode of Dynamite, but I think that they'll run with them being Grand Slam because it feels just a bit more impressive.
Most likely. But it is one of those things that now we know, for anybody that was curious beforehand about how they did it the last time, these aren't pay-per-views. They're not a separate thing like a Revolution or Double or Nothing. They are just episodes of Dynamite that are either going to be classified Dynamite, or it's just, well, we don't want to call it that because it sounds like it's a normal episode, but it is to a certain extent mini pay-per-view type material. And they haven't announced anything for either of these shows yet, for Summer Blockbuster or Grand Slam Mexico. As far as I'm aware, they just announced that these are happening as opposed to like building up a card for it. But, things to pay attention to if you're in Portland for Summer Blockbuster, if you're in Mexico City for Grand Slam Mexico, I'm sure that they have some ideas in mind, especially because even like the Grand Slam Mexico thing has some people on there like, oh God, what's his name? Sin Cara. What's the name he's going by now? Mystico. I was like, he's had like 12 names, and I keep forgetting which one's what. And they have like Hologram on there, and Will Ospreay and stuff. So like, I'm sure that they have some ideas that they're cooking around with. So Mexico in June is just going to be like, man, here comes WWE, here comes AEW. They're going to be having some fun, those fans, for like 2 weeks at least. 7th and 18th.
Well, except that they want to go to WWE, they have to come to California, but they will be having fun.
Yeah, I think it's good. As I say, it's good to have that sort of like that strength of partnership, and it means that they'll get to wrestle in Arena Mexico as well, which is like a big venue. So hopefully they'll be able to get some good crowds in for that one as well, and do some good interpromotional matches. I think I saw that I think they reported it in the newsletter today that if Mercedes Moné wrestles on either show, then she'll be the first women's wrestler in history to wrestle Madison Square Garden, Wembley Stadium, the Tokyo Dome, and Arena Mexico.
That's really cool. I'm glad that her whole, I'm going to take over the world thing is actually coming back around to fruition, because she is really good in the ring, and she deserves the success she's having.
What do you guys give the odds that Bayley leaves and goes to AEW when her contract's up? Because I'm like 75% now.
Yeah, but that's like 5 years away. So,
she says that it's a year and a half. The contract will be expiring. That's what she said on the was it Chris Van Vliet show, or something that she gave an interview. I think it fully depends on just the interest in AEW side at that point, because Bayley at that point, as I say, it's not even actually an age thing, even though she will be like 37-ish, I think, at that point, which is definitely like, it's not the age problem, it's the fact that she's just quite worn down already. Like, she just can't wrestle at the same pace that she used to. She has to be a bit more deliberate with her style now.
That knee injury really, as most knee injuries do, really messed up her game.
Exactly. So that's like she can still pull it out. Like she can still have very good matches, but I feel like I don't think she'd be able to keep up with the style or the pace of a lot of the women's wrestlers in AEW right now. In the same way, she can't really do the same thing with a lot of the people in WWE these days. It's just, it would just be dependent. And as like that could be used as a bargaining chip if they want to keep Mercedes even longer. Like, so at that point, it'll probably be close to Mercedes renegotiating her contract. If part of the sweetening the deal, you could say, oh, we'll bring Bayley over and we'll push her. Then that could help keep Mercedes around for a couple more years or a few more years, rather than have her going to a really big bidding war with WWE over potentially re-signing her. So yeah, it's like that's the intrigue of like a wrestling war. That's what this is what the ecosystem should be like.
Now, in my opinion, and those two in terms of a package deal are very Hogan and Savage to me. Like, you obviously sweeten the pot if you get both of them. And I do think that there's a lot that either side would want to have both, Bayley and Sasha or Mercedes back under one roof. And I think it's a little overblown what's going on with Bayley, because I think a lot of fans are pissed at what happened to her at WrestleMania. I'm pissed. I believe the rumor was that Becky herself was upset, but I think she's a lifer personally. I think if anybody's gonna go over, it'll be Mercedes going back over to WWE.
We mentioned WrestleMania, and that's a good enough transition for this thing called WWE Unreal that's going to be airing relatively soon. They did a teaser trailer for that, and in that there was a shot where there's a whiteboard, and it's very hard to read, and some of it is like so hard to read that people don't even say that that's part of the thing that you can see, even though you clearly can see it. But some different plans from WrestleMania come out from that little whiteboard. We don't know exactly when this was workshopped and when they were thinking that this was the card that they were going to have, but some matches from Mania are exactly the way that we got them. Some of them couldn't be much more different. If you have not seen the thing already, it is about 10 or so matches. Undisputed Championship, Cody Rhodes versus John Cena at the very top, so that's like something they had planned for a while. Then there's a thing that says Roman Reigns versus CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. Or it might say or. It's hard to really tell. So it might be Roman versus Punk or Rollins, or it might be, whatever it might be. Because right underneath it, it's CM Punk, and it looks like it says CM Punk or Seth Rollins versus Gunther. So I think they likely had, it's Punk and Gunther, or it's Punk and Roman. It's Rollins and Roman, or it's Rollins and Gunther. We've got those four. Who goes against Gunther? Who goes against Roman? That's probably what their thought process was. Instead, of course, we get Jey Uso thrown in there. We get Punk and Rollins thrown in with Roman. So that, if we could figure out when this took place, would show you when they decided to switch over to Jey Uso. Because Jay's not listed on this at all from what we can read. He might be on the bottom two sections where it's just partially covered and like the graphic is like so poor that you can't. I ran it through like 5 different filters to try to figure it out. I tried to do like, sharpening the text and all this. I couldn't get anything on there. I think one of the names written down on like the bottom two sections might be Damian Priest, but I'm not sure. There's Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair. No Io Sky on there, because Io is then listed as teaming with Asuka to fight Becky and Charlotte for the women's tag titles, which of course not at all what we got. Becky was with Lyra, and instead of Io and Asuka, Asuka's not on the card at all. Io is the champion, and it's Lyra and Becky against Liv and Raquel. Charlotte is up against Tiffany Stratton, who's not listed on here, because instead it was supposed to be Jade Cargill versus Nia Jax for the women's championship, which I have my issues with Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair. The match itself, I don't think was anywhere close to being good enough to compensate for the way that the feud went down. But I don't think that Jade Cargill versus Nia Jax would have been any better necessarily. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Orton versus Kevin Owens is still listed, so that was something they had planned for a while. Wyatt 6 versus Judgment Day, obviously we didn't get that, but that would have taken Finn Balor out of the equation. But Dom is listed as facing Bad Bunny. Braun Breaker is up against Drew McIntyre. Travis Scott's listed to join Rey Mysterio against Chad Gable. And then Styles and Logan Paul has been planned for a while. So some of this is very interesting because it's not what I would have pictured. I thought that Styles and Logan Paul wasn't necessarily something they had planned for a while. I thought that there was really nothing that was pointing towards Braun Breaker versus Drew McIntyre happening at all. So where were they going on that direction? The Travis Scott thing, totally different from what ended up playing out. I put up a thing on the Wrestling News asking if people thought that this was any better or any worse than what we originally got. And my thought process is pretty much, I think overall this would have been worse, but some of the things I could make the argument are maybe a little bit better. Maybe they would have done something else a little bit different. And like, I wouldn't have been opposed to Charlotte and Becky versus Io and Asuka. I think that could have been a better match than what we got. And maybe we gotten some other kind of different things too, because, you know, you pull one card out, the whole house of cards falls, and then you have to reshuffle the deck. What do you guys think about this whole group of matches we did and didn't get in different variations? Any of them stand out to you as like, man, I wish we would have gotten that, or thank God this didn't happen, or something?
Dom Bad Bunny is fun, but I'm glad we got what we got, because I think Dom winning a title is more important to his career, and there's a really annoying trend going on right now where everybody's just like, I'm just happy to have a WrestleMania moment. And I'm glad Dom actually won a title rather than just had a WrestleMania moment. That tag match that for the women's tag titles would have been fun. You know, I can see that being a very good time for me, at least, because all 4 of those women know what they're doing, and I think they work well together. The absence of Damian Priest as a solo and the inclusion of Wyatt 6 versus Judgment Day does make me wonder where this falls in the timeline and where, you know, whether or not Priest was already a single and away from Judgment Day, or what the deal was there, because he's not on this card at all. And maybe he was just going to back up Bad Bunny. Who knows? But he's not on this card. Travis Scott being with Ray is fun, just because we know Travis Scott somehow was in the main event of WrestleMania. There's quite a few fun things here. And I just love the ability to see the way these things get worked out and the random, here's what we actually had planned.
No United States title match listed. No Intercontinental title match listed. Although that could be their, like, maybe Braun Breaker versus Drew McIntyre was supposed to be one of them or something.
That's my assumption.
No Jacob Fatu. No Solo Sikoa. I mean, no anybody from any of the Bloodline stuff. No Usos. No Sami Zayn. Just Roman. Obviously, no Rock either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this lineup, Kellen?
Well, it wouldn't have been any more convincing for me to watch WrestleMania than the current card was. I'm probably on more of the side that I think it's better that we got EO involved in the title match than doing this tag match that they suggested. So, and yeah, if the other women's title match was going to be Jade Cargill versus Nia Jax, despite Tiffany and Charlotte not being a good feud and apparently not having a very good match either at WrestleMania. I still think that probably would have been better than a Jade Cargill Nia Jax match, which would have had to have gone like only a few minutes to make it somewhat palatable.
So my mind, this puts me at like earliest July, latest October for these particular setups, because Jade's not hurt. We don't have Priest as a solo. We don't have Jey Uso as like we got to make sure he's in a major spot. But we do have, let's make sure by WrestleMania Jade's a single and Bianca's a single. And we have things like Wyatt Six still being factored in heavily, you know?
It's interesting that like
Wyatt Six hadn't debuted at that point, had they? If that's going by your timeline, because they didn't debut until what, September, October time.
Yeah, that's why I gave that range of like either somewhere between July and November. Right. We know that this is pre-Survivor Series because Jade is still being factored in.
And if it's past SummerSlam, then Damian Priest by that point is out of Judgment Day.
Right, that's why it's confusing.
Wyatt 6 came out June 17th. Is
that really when they debuted?
Yeah.
God,
yeah, it's almost a year. They haven't done anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So realistically, it wasn't quite June. I mean, it could have been like August or so, because August they are still wrestling. They're fighting American Made, which American Made's a group at that point. And then, even then though, like that's like, okay, well, did they have that planned for that long to do Rey Mysterio versus Chad Gable? That seems
I could see it.
Kind of crazy to go that far back and be like, Rey and Chad's going to be a thing we need to build to. Like, that's a big priority match. Yet no.
Well, if you're doing your job, you should have, even smaller matches on the card penciled in your mind.
True, but that doesn't feel to me like that's a build it 9 months in advance type of thing.
Unless they knew they were buying AAA.
Yeah, that could be.
No, that 9 months in advance. I mean, put it this way: if they knew they were buying AAA that much in advance, something would have been leaked. We would have known about it. We would have known even that they were in discussions or negotiations. The fact that it kind of sprang everybody out of nowhere gives me the impression that it was a pretty fairly.
Unless this is just Gable. This is just Hunter being like, yeah, we need to give him something. We can give him Rey.
But that's a group of matches that maybe we'll see in the future being like, once the Wyatt Six are around, if the Judgment Day is still together, maybe they revisit that. We'll definitely at some point get Jade Cargill versus Nia Jax. It's going to happen. Maybe we will get Bad Bunny versus Dominic Mysterio. Maybe that'll be an Intercontinental title match in a future pay-per-view. Maybe that'll be like...
Maybe that's a Worlds Collide.
It could be Worlds Collide. That would be a massive means to promote that. Bad Bunny gets a title shot. People will tune in for that like crazy. Braun Breaker, Drew McIntyre. Yeah, those guys are going to feud at some point. Whatever. I think it's interesting that they were going to pair Charlotte and Becky up. I guess... maybe their relationship is good enough that they thought that would be worthwhile, or maybe they had some kind of an idea in mind of what they wanted to do with those two. So now that Becky's a heel again, maybe that's going to be revisited in the future too. Another thing to talk about for WrestleMania is the roast of WrestleMania. Now, I listened to the leaked audio of this, and first off, I wouldn't recommend it for multiple different reasons. One of them being the audio is kind of shit. Like, so many times throughout it, you can't really hear what's happening. And then there is a little while where, like, whoever it is that's recording this, like, the guy, like, scratches his pants or something, and you could just hear, like, it's really annoying. But this sucked. Like, I like roast comedy when roast comedy is done well. And the best equivalent that I can put out there for is it's kind of the same situation as spoof comedy, where look, two of my, I would say even three of my top favorite comedies of all time are spoof things. Naked Gun, Robin Hood Men in Tights, and Not Another Teen Movie. Those three are three of my 5 favorite comedies ever. I think that they are absolutely hilarious. But for every Not Another Teen Movie, where the jokes are just spot on and they're just like bam, 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 like one great joke after another, there are like 50 of these like superhero movie and epic movie and date movie that are just absolute shit. Even Scary Movie, it's a 5, I think, movie franchise. I think that only 2 of them are really good. I think the first one and the third one are hilarious. I think that the second one has its good jokes here and there, but then it's got a lot of jokes that aren't necessarily my cup of tea. And like the fourth one's not good. And, you know, then the fifth one I didn't even bother to see. But a good spoof movie knows how to tell an actual joke by parodying something. You know, for instance, Robin Hood Men in Tights. I watched that movie as a kid and I don't even understand how many things are making fun of certain things. And then eventually I watch Robin Hood Prince of Thieves and I'm like, oh, okay, now I have more of a context of when they're making fun of, I can actually speak with an English accent. And then I watched a movie that is predominantly being parodied. And yeah, his accent's not great if it's even there in any of the scenes. Now I get it. It's a funny joke. Even funnier when I have the context to it. Spoof bad comedy just becomes references. And roasts are in the same kind of thing. A great roast is being able to have ideally comedians, because comedians tend to be funnier than the actual, like, just hire a celebrity. But then a lot of celebrities just get people to write for them and they pass it off as their own joke. A good roast will set up a joke and tell a joke that will poke fun at somebody or something and maybe even be a little bit controversial. But the basic premise of it is we're busting your balls. The worst jokes in roasts aren't even jokes. They are just people bitching and complaining, or they're just people saying things that they think is controversial and there's no actual punchline. And that was 95% of this shit. It's not fucking funny. And the amount of people that I keep seeing that are, and this, of course, political discourse, again, you guys know how we feel about everything like this. You're either, you understand how crazy the world is right now, or you're a fucking moron. That's basically what it is. Or you're an evil person. I'm just flat out going to say it. It's one or the other. You're stupid or you're evil. And the people that are defending this and saying, you only dislike it because you're too woke, or you're too sensitive, or you're too soft. No, motherfucker, it's not fucking funny. I could tell you, out of 2 hours of listening to this, I think I went, one time. And the joke was, Paul Heyman kept referring to Maurice's vagina. This isn't the joke that made me laugh, but he kept referring to Maurice's vagina throughout the whole thing and saying that it was like huge for some reason. Whatever. Again, it's like shock value. It's not an actual joke. But he then used that as a punchline for a second punchline where he said, I got a text that says from WWE officials that I shouldn't make any jokes about people's body parts. Well, there goes 3 minutes about Shayna Baszler's penis. And I was like, all right, that's kind of funny. Very few things even made me smirk or just go, oh, that was a joke. Because it was just like Braun Strowman comes out and he's just basically like, I'm fucking mad that I'm not on the WrestleMania card, but it's great to be here. Where the fuck am I in WrestleMania? It's great to be here. I'm an idiot, though. I'm like a redneck, but it's great to be here. Fuck you, Miz. It's great to be here, though. And it's like, oh my God, fucking tell a joke. Sami Zayn had one of the better sets, and his set revolved around the idea of everybody knows that I'm a good person, so I don't think that I should do this because I started writing down jokes, and it turns out I've got a dark side and I don't want these jokes to come out. And then it being somebody else read the jokes that he had on his piece of paper, and it's like exposing him being a bad person. So it was like, The Miz is here tonight, hold for tepid applause, written down on his thing. And, The Miz is like, he learned acting by watching Maurice in the bedroom, and that's why his stuff is so bad, and like whatever like that. So it was like, all right, you got a premise of a joke there. R-Truth just told random jokes that are like old jokes. He's told like 3 old jokes.
That's on brand for R-Truth, though.
Nia was just like, fuck Charlotte and fuck these people, and yeah, I injure people and I'm not upset about it. And I will say she had a good joke about Charlotte where she said that the fans have the same reaction as her 3 ex-husbands, which is nobody wants to see them in a ring. Like, all right, you got a joke there. But man, these were terrible attempts at jokes, and mostly just people being like, Nia's fat. Okay, what's the joke?
That's the joke.
Because she's fat? You know that she's fat, right? She's fat, guys. Yo, she's fat. Okay, that's my time. Joke. The one motherfucker couldn't even say her name right. He called her Nia Jax every single time. There was a joke about the Cody from Nia that was something about like Cody's fake or whatever, and I was like waiting for that to like set something up, and it was basically her just being like, Cody's fake. And you're like,
Cody's fake, I don't like him.
He's fake, and where's the latter half of the joke? A roast is not fuck you, I don't like you. And I don't think that they should ever do this shit again if they want anybody to take part in it. Because even the comedians, the so-called comedians, predominantly weren't fucking funny. I'm not at all surprised that this Tony Hinchcliffe guy wasn't funny. Jeff Dye had a decent joke, which I heard him say before, so he was just repeating some recycled material, where he was saying about how when he was dating Becky Lynch, that it was like really bizarre that she would like end up having like a black eye because of something that happened in a match, and she'd be walking around with him, and then it would make it seem like he was like an abuser, and how he never could really defend himself because it sounds ridiculous when he goes, no, I didn't do that, Ric Flair's daughter did it. It's like, yeah, all right, that's another premise of a joke, there you go. But then again, that guy's a fucking professional comedian, so he understood to tell a joke at least. I cannot tell you how many bad jokes there were here because I lost track of it. I started writing notes about it, and then I just very quickly was like, I'm just going to end up writing down every single fucking joke or attempt at a joke. And once you hear 4 different Charlotte Flair has a different face jokes, they really lose a lot of their pizzazz. I hated it. And if I would have spent a dime on this thing, I would have been like, I need my fucking money back. Now, you guys haven't checked it out.
So the only part that I've heard through, I thought I heard all of Nia. Apparently, I didn't even hear all of Nia. I just heard the few minutes she did on Charlotte. When your headliner is the guy whose claim to fame for most will now forever be the Island of Garbage reference about Puerto Rico, you know where this is going. This was going to be the MAGA comedy hour, and I guess they got 2 out of it. And the thing with MAGA right-wing comedy is they've lost the ability to be edgy and tell a joke. It's just literally, well, did I offend you? Well, then I did my job because, comedy's legal again, bro. Like, that's all it is. I have no idea why WWE personalities in the year 2025, knowing this shit was going to get online, which, by the way, WWE is working very hard to take all of it down, would even go out there and do what they did. Like, Paul Heyman's going to whatever. And I guess I didn't know that it was him that made all the references to Maurice, because that's one of the main jokes that I had heard. People were like, "Oh my god, this all it was references to Maurice." I didn't know that was all Heyman.
It wasn't just him.
Do that.
He did it more than anybody else, but other people did too. Because for some reason, I guess the only thing that you can make fun of the Miz for is Maurice somehow, which is like
because they're fucking jealous that the Miz
like, is that like that's not even a joke. It's like, hey, Miz, your wife is hot, and it's like, thank you.
They're jealous. That's why the last time, and I do believe Vince was still in power, the whole deal was, I don't have a small dick, my balls are massive, because they're fucking jealous because the Miz is with Maurice. Whatever. But Heyman can do that because he said it in his Hall of Fame speech. You're not going to fucking cancel me because I'll just come back stronger. Why the fuck anyone else, who, by the way, doesn't have the claim of being the mastermind of ECW, which was, edgelord, peak edgelord time in society, would go out there and do this is beyond me. But that's really all I have to say about it, because this was a dumb idea from minute one.
It could work, though. That's the thing. You can tell jokes, and especially you can tell if you wanted to like keep it to like pro wrestling jokes. You could tell jokes about pro wrestling, and it could go on and on and on. You can.
I don't think it works with this premise. I don't think it works with the premise of it's a roast, and I definitely don't think it works with the premise of, and the MC is, MAGA manosphere Tony Hinchcliffe.
Right. Now, a roast should have one central focus. That's another thing, too. Like, the roast of, and then insert person, and then you can focus on that. And you can take shots at the other people that are on the dais and stuff, too. Like, you're going to do that. But when you have a roast of WrestleMania, then that also means that it's just, ignoring the fact that R-Truth didn't say anything about anything other than, like, here's a joke, why did the chicken cross the road type of, he didn't tell that joke, but like, completely unrelated. Like, if you take the jokes that he repeated, they were just jokes you would hear from somebody at like a cookout or something. Like, they're not about wrestling. They're not about the wrestlers, anything. But it's also, you shouldn't just have a joke be making shots at almost anybody that's like not even there, because then that's like, it's not even fair. They can't even defend themselves and do a joke back. And also just, I know the answer to this. I'll say the answer ahead of time is, isn't it funny when we're racist? Which, no. But like, Io Sky was out there dressed like Buzz Lightyear.
Was that a joke?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to actually point out. It's like, you guys seem to be burying the lead about the fact that this is just a horribly racist.
I didn't know.
I mean, looking at some of the lines that I'm checking out here, it's Jinder Mahal wasn't at WrestleMania because he had a midlife ISIS.
Jesus Christ.
At WrestleMania, Jey Uso was the underdog, which is what Shinsuke Nakamura ate for dinner tonight.
Oh my god! What the fuck?
Jacob Fatu became US champion, which is crazy because if the president of the US saw Jacob, he would deport him back to El Salvador. It's like,
what the fuck?
It's Hitler's birthday, so it's a celebration for Gunther.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Naomi and Jade Cargill had their match. When it comes to rivalry, we've only just begun. Weave as in the hair.
I got it.
And they'll face off again in your Waffle House.
Well, okay, this is Tony's fault for burying the lead. I didn't know what these jokes were. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, it was either, like, isn't it funny to be racist? Which, look, almost anything can potentially be funny in the right context and with the right delivery and with the right cleverness and all that. There is potential to laugh at almost anything, but your premise for a joke cannot be, just offensive. Offensive does not equal funny.
Well, it does for the audience that WWE is cultivating these days.
A good portion of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean,
God.
as I look at the one they said, like, it's kind of out of pocket. This one isn't, like, racist, frankly, but it's still a bit... It's another Paul Heyman one. But it's like... he made a joke about Freddie Prinze Jr., about the him potentially signing a wrestling promotion that says, we need another wrestling promotion. Like, Freddie Prinze Jr.'s father needs another hole in the head. Referencing the fact that his father committed suicide.
Okay, I think I got the joke, pal.
Well, just spelling out just so people know how unbelievably not just that's like let's say it's not even like that's not even roast of WrestleMania. That he's got nothing to do with WWE anymore.
That's just mean. What the fuck?
Yeah, he's got nothing to do with it. He's not there. He can't like take a shot back.
Yeah.
And it inherently becomes just, I wanted to bitch about this. I wanted to complain about that.
The whole thing was just like, as I say, the comedians doing unfunny jokes and the wrestlers kind of more just either bitching and moaning about their spot or thinking that they're going to be funny, but really they were just like, well, especially in Nia's case, attacking Charlotte Flair constantly. The Sami Zayn one is most like distasteful because I know he wasn't on the WrestleMania card, and there's probably got a good paycheck out of it. But maybe he's just not a good person. Maybe everyone's like assumption about him about being like this kind of nice, mild mannered sort of guy. Maybe he's just a dick. Maybe he is just like. If you're willing to do this sort of thing or attach your name to something like this, then you have to. Well, first of all, if you're throwing it out. And I know his case was like, oh, I'm a nice guy. I'm just going to write these things and get other people to say it, and that's going to be the joke. But like, if you just want to attach yourself to this or be involved in it, or just like you throw yourself open to this sort of criticism, you're probably a dick. Like, it threw him down in my estimations. But then again, like, he works for the company. He knows what they do. Like he was involved in all the stuff associated with like then joining up with Saudi Arabia and being kicked off those shows and everything like that associated with it, and he still stuck around. So like you can't really put too much over his head anymore. There is another wrestling promotion out there that probably would have taken as Sami Zayn had the opportunity presented himself, but he wants to be there. This is the type of people, and this is the atmosphere he wants to be involved in. So, and that's the same with a lot of these people. So I think. This and a lot of the whole PR disaster that WWE experienced over WrestleMania week and weekend is just the curtain is being pulled back a lot further, the veil's coming down, everything associated with it. We know who this company is, we know who they support politically, culturally, all that kind of... We know where they stand now. There's no getting away from it. There's no kind of argument of like neutrality or anything like that. We know what this company is now, and this roast was one of the other examples of that being the case.
Well, I mean, like, and we can tie this into what Paul Heyman said the next day, which got a lot of flack as well, where he goes on the Pat McAfee show, and somebody said, you suck, and he turns around and looks at the guy, he goes, what is it, the guy who looks like he's about to be deported? Listen, buddy, I may suck, but it's your mother who taught me how. Latter half of that is just, again, ECW edgelord nonsense. But to go directly for the deportation thing, as Callum says, there's no hiding it anymore. And that's something and I struggled with a lot last week, having to go through some of the interviews and be like, oh, okay, we're just open. Oh, we're doing that. Oh, Cena said what? Oh, Roman said what?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was me all week. And it does kind of get to a point where you go, all right, how much longer do I got to do this? And how much longer until it just crosses into where I can't stomach anymore, and that's unfortunate because, and I said this privately and I'll say it out loud, on the 1 week where like other things weren't going well, personally, and I really could have used WrestleMania to do the thing that they say they do, which is put smiles on faces and be escapism. They were anything but. They were in your face with like, this is what we are, and it sucked.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend not listening to that stuff, or if you do want to listen to it with the thought process in mind that you're either not going to laugh or I don't know, maybe you should have like a second thought about why you're laughing at some of these things. But, not at all surprised. I knew that this was going to be a bad idea from the moment I heard about it. There's no way that they were going to pull it off. Now, completely different thing to talk about, but this is another news thing that just kind of changed over the past couple of days, and it's actually something that's been going on for a long while, and now we finally got some form of confirmation about it, even though it's still confusing. The Universal Championship has been retired. Now, I have been one of the only people on damn near the entire internet that has been pointing out, since Roman Reigns had one championship belt, where this this gold back-plated undisputed WWE championship thing, that WWE kept referring to this as the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Then they started to refer to it as the undisputed WWE Championship a little bit closer to when Cody was going to win it. But the website continued to show that it was still the Universal title. For the entirety of Cody Rhodes' reign, he was still listed on more than one thing on WWE.com as being the Universal Champion and the WWE Champion. So it wasn't a matter of like, oh, it's only on the one thing. He was on the title history page. He had both championship belts on his roster page, and on the full roster page, he was listed twice. Since John Cena won it, they have decided, I guess, to retroactively say that doesn't count. And at this point now, Roman is listed as being the last of the Universal Champions, with April 7th being the last day of his reign, so when Cody won it. And then the championship is retired, and the WWE title is just the WWE title, and that's what Cody has held, and that's what John is holding now. So that means that they, of course, they do this in every scenario that they think of. They change the rules depending on what they want. And if you look at other championships, somebody wins a title and then it becomes vacated or it's unified, and they count that person as the last of those champions. Whether that's like you unified like the Intercontinental and the European Championship, or the NXT UK Championship. I'm pretty sure if the NXT UK title, let me double check it for sure, but I'm almost positive that the last NXT UK champion, for instance, is Bron Breakker. Try to find where that United Kingdom title is on here. And okay, so maybe they went through and retroactively changed all of them, because now that's showing Tyler Bate. Maybe
they don't count. They don't count. I almost called her Ashley. Mandy Rose as a champion either. So,
and the tag title, but the tag titles, the NXT UK tag titles, Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen, so maybe they just company wide were like, no, that doesn't count anymore, which then changes people's whole title lineage.
What though? Like, I'm kind of good with saying that it was retired with Roman, because to me it was retired the moment Roman merged them when he beat Lesnar. We just carry the number because Roman happened to have that title first, and we had to get to 1,000 days.
Yeah. Now it does make sense to just get rid of it, but of course, undisputed is a stupid term to throw around now, because the undisputed champion then has another world champion.
Just call it the WWE Championship. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like they call it the WWE Women's Championship.
Even
I don't know
though
why
that belt has undisputed written on it
the
too.
word undisputed on it. Yeah, I know.
So,
It's very annoying. I mean, in grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. It's very annoying, you know?
it's one of those things that most people would be like, I don't care. It's the same championship and this is just numbers bullshit. But then at the same time, whenever WWE wants a number to mean something, then the numbers have to mean something. It's the same as how for a little bit of time, they were counting the NXT Women's Championship towards Charlotte Flair's record. And then they just arbitrarily decided that that doesn't count anymore. It's like, well, it does or it doesn't. It can't be both. And if you want to keep going back and forth between it does and it doesn't, depending on the scenario, then you have every right to be criticized when people don't follow the rule that you've changed your mind to. You can't be bipolar about facts. You know, it sort of is and it isn't. Charlotte right now should be, if you count that, past the 16-time thing and it should just be over with. And she could just go, you know, retire or whatever it is. And that would be perfectly fine in a lot of people's mindsets. But I guess they must have realized when they were switching over John Cena that if they kept the Universal Championship like that, then that meant that John Cena was now an 18-time champion. And maybe that's the thing that made them go, well, fuck, now we have to say that we can't do that. We got to make it opposite for Cody and all. If it turns out that the matter was just, oh, fuck, for the past year, we never changed the thing on the website and nobody paid attention to 5 different pages that told you that information, then holy shit, that department on WWE that deals with the website team should be fired because those people should not pay that little attention to those things.
I also just think it's not that, like, it's just not that important to them. You know? Okay, it's just Cody's the Universal Champion, but who cares? You know, we know what they mean by that. I think that is so much of their mentality, and when it comes to the website, I don't really care. But WWE brain bleeding into wrestlers lately is driving me up the wall. Like The Rock's comments to McAfee or a lot of the things I was reading before and after WrestleMania. It's WWE brain it needs to stop.
There's a worldwide pandemic issue of stupidity should not be running like the thing that people go to should not be illogical shit. And well, I don't care about it, so you shouldn't care either. And well, this doesn't make any sense.
Do you have Rock's thoughts as a hot tag?
No, I didn't. But I think it's kind of ridiculous that he constantly keeps going out and just contradicting himself and saying things don't matter and you should care, but you shouldn't care. And
Rock basically went on the Pat McAfee show and said there was never a plan for me to be involved in Mania. Also went on to talk about how like Cody will eventually get the belt again as a babyface and then turn heel eventually. And then he even responded to Dave LaGreca of Busted Open to be like, hey Dave, business is work, always has been, always will be. You know, come join us in our creative meetings, and I've got some tequila for your buddy or whatever the fuck. I, as somebody who like enjoys wrestling, I am so sick of the mentality being from it's fake and not like okay, I don't care if people who don't watch wrestling, if that's their only takeaway, that's fine, right? I think we can all agree on that, right? We all have friends who are just like, why do you watch that shit still? It's fake. But when the company itself now is telling you, don't get invested, it's like, we're just flying by the seat of our pants. It's completely fake. You know, don't get all into what we're doing here. Or when a Joe Hendry goes, golly gee, it's sure fine that I lost to Randy Orton the way I did because John Cena lost really quickly at WrestleMania once. I hate this mentality of like nothing matters, it's all a show. You know why I don't like that mentality? Because actual shows don't do this to you. Actors on shows don't come out and go, you don't really care about what happens on the series finale of How I Met Your Mother. You haven't been invested for 10 years. Yeah, you don't care. You know, and it seems like it's an exclusive to wrestling thing where they just go, yeah, what do you care anyway? It's fake. Go get laid. Go touch grass. And it's like, these fucking people are giving you money. Can't you pretend to care about them? Like, they're giving you money. The fuck?
That's been the remit for especially WWE for years because they have an abusive relationship with their fan base.
They really do.
They require their fan base to be invested and involved in order to obviously present themselves as a super like money drawing company, and they'll say you're in control and you're the part of the WWE universe. But then they'll just say, "Oh, you actually are criticizing or critiquing or making comments about how I promote or how the booking went on this thing or if the match wasn't so good." Yeah, fuck off and die because like no one cares what you think. You're just gonna keep watching anyway. And that's
the thing I don't like about that.
At the same time, we don't care if you cheer or you boo as long as you make noise. It's like, well, we're making noise on Twitter, aren't you?
That's Triple H's MO. That's like ever since, not even like probably before that, but he's the one that goes onto and cuts a promo about him and his buddy Mark aren't going to watch anymore. Like he absolutely what's the word? He hates the fan base, but he loves the fan base. That's why he has to be like, when it's WrestleMania, he has to be the first person that's on the screen, like welcoming everyone in and every big show and say, "Are you ready?" When he did it for NXT as well, like he's such an unbelievable egomaniac that he needs all this stuff, but he needs to be loved. And any sort of inkling of criticism, anything, especially in the build up to WrestleMania, because there was such a groundswell of this doesn't look very good and they haven't done a good job building up to this. He went on the warpath in terms of like telling the fans to just shut up and enjoy, just be a fan, don't be a critic or anything along those lines. And
so but the problem I have with that is it's now bled over into the entire industry. It doesn't matter if you're GCW, AEW, everyone takes this attitude of like, you're the idiot that's coming to watch this thing. How dare you criticize? Go ahead.
I disagree that AEW has that attitude towards their fans. I disagree that most promotions have that attitude towards their fans. I think certain people, individuals within that promotion, might do every now and again. But I think it's only in WWE where it seems to be a conditioned, like, we're under attack, go, like, taken back on. Because, like, WWE is very much, like, anti-wrestling media, and very patronising towards their fan base. I was going to say, on top of this stuff, because you brought up, like, The Rock and the Pat McAfee show. And again, I'm more than happy to be on the minority on this side of the podcast as well. I don't think The Rock said anything that was bad or wrong, realistically. Like, yeah, he's making a lot of comments about, like, quote-unquote, exposing the business. Dude, the business has been exposed for over 30 years. Like, we all know how it runs up, and WWE have constantly done documentaries and everything surrounding it, basically just saying, oh, this is how it all the inner workings are, and nothing, and the wins and losses don't really matter, and all that jazz. But The Rock basically went on the Pat McAfee show and explained the situation, which is, like, I was not going to do WrestleMania, pretty much from all the way back from SummerSlam onwards. I wasn't going to do WrestleMania. The clearest indication that he wasn't going to do WrestleMania is the Netflix premiere, where he basically killed every single storyline that he had been building up leading into that show, and basically just, went out and was Dwayne Johnson. That's the clearest indicator of anything else that he wasn't going to do anything at WrestleMania this year. And then he was called by Ari Emanuel to help out with Elimination Chamber because it wasn't selling very well. So he came in and like did the angle with Cody and John Cena and said, okay, now it's in your guys' hands. You've got 6 weeks to build up to WrestleMania. See what you can do. So I don't think that, if anything, like The Rock, as he did 2 years ago, helped WrestleMania, and then was let down by the very mediocre booking that Triple H always delivers. Like Triple H, it's kind of the couple of years, and I say I'm not an avid WWE watcher anymore, but the bits and pieces that I do check out has kind of put a lot of spotlight to me on maybe Triple H was never that good of a booker. Maybe his NXT shows were just saved by the fact that those takeovers would just had a lot of really great wrestlers on them that would have great matches, and that would save him in the same way that a lot of people look at like some AEW shows in the past, say like, oh, there's not been that much of a storyline build towards it, but they're just going to have great match on the show and that'll be enough. That's basically Triple H's crutch. Still these days as well, is that, oh, the booking is pretty, it's logical, but it's vanilla as fuck. And it's got no intrigue surrounding it. And so if you feel like, okay, this kind of has made sense, the booking leading into WrestleMania or Elimination Chamber or Royal Rumble or whatever, but, I'm not particularly fussed one way or the other about what's happening. But, and that was the same with all of the NXT. No one really remembers anything that happened on the TV leading up to the takeovers, but the takeovers themselves were great because they had great wrestlers having great matches on them. So I think that that's kind of bled over into a lot of what WWE is today. And yeah, as I say, I think The Rock is getting, he's getting criticised fairly in certain areas, but I think he's also getting unfairly criticised by not showing up at WrestleMania when he was never intending to show up at WrestleMania in the first place.
Well, I think, and I don't know who to blame for this. Maybe it's, again, just kind of, you got to point the finger at yourself after a while. But WWE does this thing where, like, this is the third time they've built a show around The Rock with...
You should point the finger at, point the finger at where it should be aimed, which is Paul Levesque. Because he's the one booking these shows. Why was Elimination Chamber not selling well enough that they had to bring The Rock in? Why was the show not...
Probably because they chose to run the fucking Skydome.
Look at the business issue, but then also look at, surely if your show is as hot as it could be, or you build up the stars that you have right now, then surely you can maybe not sell out the Skydome, because it is a big stadium, and as I say, WWE is going through peaks and troughs in terms of fan base, and that's the same with any wrestling promotion. It's always cyclical. I'm not saying WWE has been horrible by any stretch of the imagination, but it's more of a case of you've chosen that venue, so it's on you as a booker to try and put out the best card possible to sell it out. And they tried to do it by putting John Cena obviously in the main event and thought that might be enough, but it clearly wasn't.
Well, I also think they're going to start running into this issue that all major companies are running into in the year 2025, where, well, we gotta fucking report massive major earnings, and if not, we have failed tremendously, instead of just being like, it is crazy how steady our business is. It has to be this crazy celebration or it's nothing.
Late stage capitalism.
Yeah. Exactly. But as I say, that's the...
Don't worry, everybody, it'll trickle down.
There's a lot of... As I say, I think that... Maybe I, on my own, or like... There does feel like, not so much a worm turning back to, in the whole WWE AEW debate, like moving back towards AEW, but there does seem to at least be a change in opinion towards WWE. But maybe that's just internet speak, and that's like swaying the general consensus, whereas most people probably just don't care and they just tune in to watch Raw and SmackDown or WrestleMania whenever it's on, and just watch along without really paying much attention to what the internet is saying. But it does feel like a bit more of the overriding positivity aimed towards WWE in the last couple of years has started to erode away, and it took a really big hit over the last week.
Well, I think you're going to keep seeing this back and forth with AEW as well, because this always happens. When Vince was, when AEW came in and it was like Vince was on top and they were doing this garbage TV, AEW was heralded as this savior. When AEW started to dip and they did things like, hiring Ric Flair and such, It was, meanwhile, Hunter's getting power and cool things are happening in WWE. It was AEW in the mud, WWE forever. I think you're just going to constantly see this annoying, like, all or nothing perception. And that's, at the end of the day, that discourse is no good for anybody.
It's also exhausting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's always like everybody else assumes you're doing that too. And then, you start getting into the whole thing where, back and forth, I could be like, hey, I liked some matches that were on this AEW show this week, and I liked some matches and some angles in this WWE show, and some of them on either show were pretty bad. And people are like, you fucking WWE apologist. At the same time, a comment underneath, you fucking AEW shill. And it's like, man, not only do I wish I was being paid by one of these companies, I really wish I was being paid by both of them. It'd be fucking great if that was the case. But easily, if you suddenly out of nowhere start seeing, hey, everybody, check out GCW, whatever. It's the best thing ever. You'll be like, all right, Tony sold out. But
I mean, I would love it. I love it if like all this stuff, like, and it's not just like wrestling, but wrestling is the one that mostly affects us. But wish this would just go into everybody's, like, affect every single part of people's lives and how much it would change things. Like someone goes into an ice cream parlor and says, "Oh, I want vanilla," and the other says, "Oh, I want strawberry," and then they get into a big fist fight over which one of them's better.
It becomes,
they only have one flavor of ice cream.
I like vanilla. Well, I like chocolate. Well, that means that you must hate vanilla. No, I prefer chocolate better. Oh, well, you must be. And then you insert something from if you're a vanilla apologist or something.
We just got like, oh, I'll go into the ice cream parlor. I want vanilla. I want chocolate. Oh, I know why you want chocolate. It's like, what is that supposed to mean? And then it just goes into this giant, like, overarching, like, philosophical, not say philosophical, but just debate. It's like, what are the benefits of vanilla over chocolate, and how much does vanilla sell every single year compared to chocolate?
Yeah,
you're just looking into all the different metrics.
The buy rate?
What's the buy rate? What's the overall popularity saying? It's like, oh, you can only drink Coke if you take one sip of Pepsi, you're like a devil child. That kind of overarching, like, literally with every single thing in the world, you can only have one thing, because if you change at all, then you're a heathen.
Everybody knows that Strawberry only got to the big three based off of Strawberry's dad's money. All that shit is so goddamn frustrating.
So stupid, man. Like,
and if you're the type of person that's listening to this and you're like, hey, that sounds like something I would say, revisit a lot of things. I just realized I don't have a transition for this, but Tama Tonga's injured. That sucks, but I guess now is a good enough time for that to happen, because it's not like Tonga Loa had been around for a while. It seems like they don't know what they're doing with Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Maybe we're wrong about that. Maybe SmackDown tonight changes things and it's like, okay, we're going straight into that feud or something, but kind of feels to me like they're going to put that on hold a little bit. And in the meantime, I don't think Tama Tonga would have been doing anything but losing to whoever Jacob Fatu is feuding with at the moment. And, if you want to take some time off, then post WrestleMania is better than WrestleMania itself. Not that he was on the card for WrestleMania, but, that sucks that anybody gets injured. So, hopefully when he is back and ready to go, that maybe by then they'll sort out what they want to do with this other bloodline, and maybe we'll get both of them together as a tag team or something. I don't know.
Yeah, sucks that he's injured.
That's one side of that. Another thing, unfortunately, to report on, Steve Mongo McMichael has passed away. And, of course, any time that somebody passes away, we always want to send our condolences out to anybody that's out there. Talk about our quote-unquote fond memories, or, things we didn't like about their career, whatever it might be. I mean, I'm not going to, like, rag on the guy. We're not roasting the guy or anything like that, but Mongo is certainly not somebody that I could be like, here's my top 10 favorite Mongo matches, But I do remember back in the day watching a WCW's, like, heyday, thinking that, like, Mongo was kind of a fun character here and there, and he never really seemed like he fit perfectly in my mind for, like, why he was like part of the Four Horsemen and like some different things, but it's a name that that'll always be in my head when it comes to WCW, and it always sucks to hear that anybody passes away. So condolences, but I don't have too much to talk about specifics for Mongo. Any thoughts you guys got?
Mongo is like peak Monday Night War when I think of Mongo, and I think of him being in the Horsemen. He was a fun addition. They never like pushed him beyond where he was, He was a fun addition to the Horsemen at a time where they didn't see a lot for the Horsemen. So it fit. And I think for what he did in WCW, I thought he contributed all right to the business. And of course, I can't speak to his football legacy, which is what people really know him for. And it seems like a real legend of the sports world passed away.
Yeah, I'd say someone that was like for my time in terms of watching. So I've gone back and watched a few bits and pieces. He looked like he was, fun, uncoordinated. Like he wasn't a very technical wrestler, but he had some fun moments, and I thought that like he's someone who almost benefited from his lack of in-ring prowess, so he could be a bit, like a Sid type guy, where he had the charisma and he could do some fun stuff, but like you wouldn't go out and say, okay, we need 20, Steve. Like, give us 20 minutes and see what we can do. Like, it's someone that would just be in and out in like 5 to 10 minutes, do what you can do. And, there are plenty of people in that, and because he had such of a footballing legacy and had a nice magnetic charisma about him, then that's basically all he needed to do. So, as I say, that seems like it seems like he maximized what he could do in the short span that he was in professional wrestling.
Is there like necessarily like a match, but or whatever, but like a picture or like an image in your mind of like, if somebody says like Steve Mongo McMichael, is there like an immediate thought for either of you guys? I picture just him with the glasses on standing next to Deborah.
Yeah, in the Bears jersey, and he's probably flashing the 4 fingers.
Yeah, I can only just like see the images of him posing with like Flair and Anderson and Benoit as part of and like Malenko as part of like Four Horsemen, or like whatever concoction they were at that point in time. And then probably at that moment in time, when I was like looking back and like if I read up anything about like the history of Four Horsemen, and then saw the photo, I just said, really? But just like, but there's he wasn't someone that seemed to fit. But then again, Luger was part of the Four Horsemen at one point, and so he's probably an equivalent in terms of not nowhere near the equivalent in terms of like just wrestling. Luger was better than McMichael, but that kind of the meathead of the group.
So transitioning from that to another just sort of random topic, but something else to report on. Kelley has started to train at the Performance Center. And there's some reports coming out there that even though she's training in the ring, that the goal is to basically have her be a manager, which multiple things to unpack there. Number one being, if she's training in the ring, then that's training to take bumps. Even as a manager, you might take a bump every once in a while. Paul Heyman just took like 3 of them in the past like month or so. It might not necessarily mean that she's wrestling, but it could also mean that she would get in the ring. It's a little bit weird because sometimes they have people that are like, they play the part of a manager, but they're a manager / wrestler. And then there's other people like Scarlett, who they never put her in the ring when they can. They go out of their way to not have her wrestle. And it's kind of strange too, because like she's not even necessarily a mouthpiece. She's just quite literally a valet. So that could mean that's, WWE want to put her in a valet spot more, or as a manager, or is she wrestling? It's a combo. It's also a thing that, hey, maybe if Samantha Irvin had stuck around just a little bit longer, she might have been able to convince them of doing the same thing, because she had said that she really wanted to be something along those lines instead of an announcer. And for Cathy to be training in the ring and to potentially be working in some kind of a managerial capacity, that could have applied the same to Samantha too. I've seen plenty of reactions to this, and most of them follow what's in my brain, which is can't wait to see whatever she does with Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, people do want to see her with Rhea Ripley.
Yep.
Yeah. I like it. I like it if she's into the idea of branching out. I think it's a good move. I do wish they would have extended the same courtesy to Samantha. But I think with Samantha, it was just like she pigeonholed herself by just being so damn good as a ring announcer. They're like, nope, we're not. No, you're perfect. We don't want to lose you as that, and they ended up losing her anyway. Or maybe because they lost her, maybe Cathy said, hey, I want to do this, and they said, let's not lose another one. You know, who knows?
Could be, yeah. Or it could even be, well, she's pissing us off, so let's do something and be like, fuck you, Samantha. We'll do that for that person.
Fight is a powerful motivator.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's like we just see how she progresses in the performance center and how quickly any in-ring skills develop. So I don't know what her kind of athletic background is in the past. So I don't know whether she has anything to help expedite the process. Like if she is starting, she's starting pretty. That's like you can start wrestling training at any age. I'm not trying to throw shade, but like the earlier you start, it's usually the better for you. But yeah, we'll see how it ends up developing. I see it probably more likely she just ends up as a manager that can take bumps. That's just like if I was to prognosticate where I think the future lies for her. I think that's probably where I see it going. Because also if she was to get into more the actual like bell to bell wrestling, it's already quite crowded over there in WWE's like women's division and NXT side of things. Like it's going to be hard. It's hard to carve out a spot for yourself with people that are training like week in, week out. So I think it's probably better to just lean into her existing reputation and standing in the fan base and just transition naturally from a backstage interviewer into a managerial capacity. And then if she gets really good in the ring, then maybe you do see if that can transition into an actual in-ring career. But yeah, I think start off as a manager for now for whoever that ends up being. Like I know people would say the Rhea Ripley thing because they know about their backstage interactions and clear friendship between the two of them, but realistically, Rhea Ripley doesn't need a mouthpiece or a manager, especially if she's still going to be babyface for a while going forward. So you probably should, because you usually don't tie out managers with babyfaces, you probably should aim towards someone who probably needs a mouthpiece or someone to help accentuate their character. And I don't think Rhea needs that help.
I'm not seeing anything on Cathy's background about any kind of athletic stuff. Journalism degree, things like that. She's apparently a member of Mensa. Good for her.
Oh, so she can cut a promo. You know, like that's not to say you need a Mensa IQ to cut a promo. It's just like, okay, so she's probably, a smart enough person to come at things with different angles.
I'm curious to see what she brings to the table. You never know who's going to end up surprising you in what capacity. Some people are like, wow, they're a terrible in-ring performer, but one hell of a commentator. Or I never would have imagined that person that really sucked at being, I don't know, being on the mic ended up being the most amazing producer backstage, or this person's great at single thing that they've done, and you give them any kind of a task and they'll put the shit together better than anybody else or something. I don't know. So it's neat. Something to look forward to in the future. And if we don't see anything come about from it, then it'll probably be because she realized that she wasn't super into it, or she wasn't like connecting in a super great way or whatever. But at least for now, something to look forward to. Let's get into TV talk. Go back to Monday Night Raw. A couple things happened on there that are worth talking about. One of them being that Rusev returned in a fashion that I'm not a big fan of. And I don't understand the thought process behind this. I would say I'm assuming that we're going to get some clarification about it next week, but I honestly don't think that that's going to happen. Because what happened here was the New Day starts cutting a promo about how they won the world tag titles and all that stuff. Alpha Academy comes out and they're like, hey, we should be number one contenders, as if there's any justifiable means for that whatsoever.
There was.
They had beaten them, like, what was it, like months ago?
In 60 seconds before they went on a path that brought them to the world tag titles. I think that's fair enough to say, hey, give us something.
Well, instead what they got was Rusev beating them up.
Yes.
And I don't quite understand the idea of like Rusev goes out and gets involved in the tag team division by himself, but I'm assuming it's because Otis and Akira Tozawa are just the go-to jobbers of Raw, so they just wanted to have him beat two people for the next 2 weeks or something. And
yes, the go-to jobbers that were paired up with the new World Heavyweight Champion throughout all of WrestleMania season.
Strange, right? But they jobbed. That's what they were doing. So I guess we're going to get Rusev versus Akira Tozawa next week, and then Rusev versus Otis the week after, and then he'll finally get a feud post-Backlash.
They'll face them both in a handicap match at Backlash, probably.
Oh, God, I hope that they don't waste any time on that.
Well, that's how Rusev came into the company, or how he came into the WWE main roster, is that he was in a feud immediately with R-Truth and Xavier Woods. And that ended in a handicap match at the first pay-per-view he was on. I think it was Extreme Rules at that point. And he faced them both in a handicap match. So they're basically just going to run it all back again. And that will just be the same process. And he'll become United States champion and he'll defend it against a top babyface at WrestleMania. Yeah. I'm glad his shoulder seems okay. I was a bit worried for a second because it seemed that he'd completely debilitated him and it meant that he can't have any matches whatsoever. But yeah, so he's back as where he kind of belongs. And we'll see how they handle him and what they do with his character and how similar it is to the AEW character.
At the very least, he doesn't have the same style that he had at one point in AEW, which I'm more than okay with. I don't think he needs to wear the Gucci shirts and stuff.
He's not doing the gamer gimmick anymore, and that was terrible.
Yeah.
So some fun things here for me. First of all, I forgot that in AEW he had like that horn, and I forgot that was his presentation because I heard that go off and the lights go off, and I'm like, are they already calling up Dark State? No. And then obviously I see Rusev. And another funny thing is Deadline reports moments after that Rusev and Lana are back on Raw. And a shocking number of outlets just ran with Rusev and Lana showed up on Raw as though Lana was there.
Yeah.
And she wasn't, and that's just funny to me.
Now she supposedly is signed to like a Legends contract, according to some reports.
By the way, I'm glad that they changed that to Nostalgia contract.
Oh, they did? I didn't see that.
That's been a thing since like the Headbangers signed, I think. Most just call it Legends deal because that's what it's been called for forever.
Yeah, it's like saying Future Endeavored. Like they don't use that phrase anymore, but still going to put it out there. Nostalgia contract, it sounds a little bit demeaning in some ways, but then it's also true. So maybe there's a nicer way to frame that rather than just being like, you old, or like careers behind you type. I don't know. Another big thing that happened on Raw. Well, I mean, there's plenty of the like little things here and there, but like we don't need to talk about like very, very specific things. Like Randy Orton hit an RKO for John Cena. Well, we're now going to have that match at Backlash. There you go. It's St. Louis. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez won back the tag team titles, and Becky Lynch turned heel on Lyra Valkyria. So that title change just, flip-flopped right there, full-on hot potato situation, and not how I would have done things to be honest, but at the same time, sure, fucking whatever. It's not like I was like super invested in that tag team anyway.
Yeah, I just found it to be a little annoying. But maybe we get Becky Lynch with the new Seth Rollins thing.
Possibly. I mean, I think more than likely the next thing to jump to is that she wins the Women's Intercontinental title, at least.
Yeah, and that should give that belt a boost.
Yeah, I mean, let's say they use the tag team titles as a vehicle to turn Becky heel. So, as I say, it hasn't really changed things too much, but that's kind of fine. Let's say they needed something to be the catalyst because they knew that Becky would be cheered coming back in. So if they want to make her heel, they need to do something to make it stand out more.
Also, this means that for the second time in a row, we're going to get a story of Liv and Raquel get blamed, at least partially, for somebody getting attacked backstage. And then it turns out it was a babyface that attacked her, and that...
I didn't even fucking put that together.
And that she used it to propel herself to a tag title situation where she won the titles and then turned on the person after the fact. Just copy and paste.
I didn't even put together that they were going to say it's Becky that attacked Bayley. I just thought, they attacked Bayley, so now Lyra needs a partner.
Yeah, they'll say that that's the case, and then it'll end up being Becky versus Bayley for at least a little bit.
That's silly.
That Stephanie Vaquera thing, I don't think that's even really really worth talking about, to be perfectly honest. Like, Io's in the ring, Vaquera comes out, wants to have a match. Roxanne, Perez, and Julia both attack. Rhea Ripley helps out. And then for some reason, Roxanne is fighting Stephanie on NXT for the title, as if she's done absolutely anything to deserve that over the course of...
You didn't see the segment at the end of Stand to Deliver?
What?
Where Roxanne interrupted her photo shoot and attacked her and said, I want a match because I should have been in the title match to Stand and Deliver. And because Stephanie's a fighting champion, she was like, give her the match.
Wait, when did that happen?
That happened after the main event of Stand and Deliver. It was, you probably turned it off immediately. But after the main event, they cut to backstage, and that happened.
I had that on heading into the pre-show for WrestleMania.
You should have seen it then.
Huh. Yeah, even then, I still just don't understand why they went in that direction. And I think it's just to kill some time and to get some people on the show to get people talking about whatever. But they had that whole thing that cuts a little bit into the NXT stuff, same kind of stuff. Gunther attacked Michael Cole and Pat McAfee. I almost put that down as a babyface turn for attacking Pat McAfee. So, it seems like that could be a means to write him off for a little bit.
Nope,
maybe
he's on Raw. They already announced that he'll be on Raw.
Oh, already? So then what the hell was the point of this?
That's a means to write Gunther off.
I think they're going to go with the just like he gets suspended and then takes some time.
They suspended him before we started this podcast.
Oh, okay. So let me add that to my list of fake suspensions on smarkmmo.com. Did they announce that on like Twitter or something?
Yep. Pierce announced it on Twitter.
So annoying. You should not have to follow so many different things at the same time.
But we do.
I hate this timeline. The other thing that happened on Monday Night Raw, after a few other things, like Dom retains over Penta, JD McDonough returns and stuff, but whatever they're going to call this group, whether it's the Dangerous Alliance or it's something else, Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman now have another person in there with Bron Breakker. I think it's a great idea to put him with that.
This is fucking great. First of all, I thought that this was the first Raw after Mania in a long time that felt like, holy shit, this is nonstop, big hits. In some ways, it was better than definitely the first night of Mania and maybe even the second. But this is awesome. You've got Heyman with Breakker with Rollins. they're going immediately into a feud with two of the top stars of the last 15 years. Breaker's a made man. I hope this is more of a dangerous alliance, more of a Paul Heyman-centric faction, and I hope that they use this to elevate even more young talent. Or even if it's not like a young talent, underutilized talent, you know? Get Baszler in there as a killer or something. Like, utilize people that aren't being used on TV.
I think Paul Heyman's the smartest man in professional wrestling, as is often
Nope, that's Jeff
proved.
Jarrett. It's Jeff Jarrett.
No, I'd argue Paul Heyman has done it better because this probably secures him in the main event scene of WWE for another good 2-3 years, probably.
They did straight up. They straight up said, "This is the story that gets us to the next main event of WrestleMania" in the promo. So yes.
But yeah, exactly. Like this is what Heyman does, and Heyman's great at it, and he should keep it up. But he attaches himself to the hottest thing going. He attached himself to Brock Lesnar. He attached himself to Roman Reigns. He attached himself to CM Punk for the period where they were pushing him highly in WWE as well. And now he's attached himself to Bron Breakker because he knows that that's a guy that's going to get pushed really highly, and he's going to help orchestrate that. So yeah, I know people will say oh, it'd be cool if they put people like Shayna Baszler or some other lower card people and give them a push. But realistically, Heyman will just put in people that he thinks actually has longevity in future. Like, obviously, you've got Seth and potentially Becky joining, and then they're two already well-established stars. So he'll put in people that are young and have what he seems to be real potential. I know there's the rumor mill was circulating that Fraxium would join the group.
Now, dude, fan.
And have Axiom take off the mask and just be whatever his name would end up being, because I assume they wouldn't call him A-Kid at that point. But yeah, I think that as I say, it's a good start to the group. It's nice to see that they've transitioned Bron Breakker from just losing the title and pushed him into being the understudy to the main event act of Seth Rollins. So that immediately positions him as he probably won't be world champion this year, but probably in 2 years' time he'll be world champion. So yeah, I'd say it's a smart move all around for them.
If you had to guess right now, and of course plans can change, whether that's an injury or something gets really hot and you have to switch it up, or The Rock shows up and completely changes everything at the last minute from January onward. But if this is supposed to lead into WrestleMania next year, what do you think Rollins and Bron Breakker do?
Well, not even thinking that ahead of WrestleMania. Rollins should win the world title with Backlash.
He totally should. He should beat Jey Uso immediately. Yeah.
Oh, you should have beaten him on Raw, I think.
I'd have been okay with it, to be honest.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking, do they use Heyman to get this belt to that level, because it's just not there?
I think the route is pretty well. It depends. There's a lot of things can change between now and WrestleMania. But if I was to go based on just what happened on Raw, then I think that you have one match of Bron Breakker versus Roman Reigns and one match of CM Punk and Seth Rollins probably for the World Championship.
Yeah, that's definitely what I see happening.
I have a couple ideas in my mind, and some of the stuff is going to bleed over into my fantasy booking Mania 42 thing that I'm going to workshop, and maybe I'll even change some of that around too and everything. I don't know. So keep in mind, I'm spoiling something that may change, and I'm also spoiling something that might even not do the video or something. But I could see Bron Breakker being in a position where he's having a very prominent upper mid card feud, and it's against a Randy Orton, for instance. Kind of we'll put him in that position and then really make him a solid person going forward. I could see a scenario where by the time WrestleMania comes around, Bron Breakker turns and it's Bron against Seth Rollins. Although I don't think that that's going to be their direction. I think that that's kind of rushing it a little bit. I could see Sammy being somebody that is going up against Seth and being like a guy over the course of the next couple of months feuding with Rollins, being like, oh, I gotta win this championship because you're corrupt as all hell. But I don't think that that's going to be at WrestleMania. I could see Cody having something with Seth again. I could see Cody and Bron Breakker doing something together. Maybe they can do Roman and Seth again, and that's how you get the belt back on Roman, is that he beats Seth, and it's like finishes that story or whatever it might be. I don't know. But I definitely want Seth to win that title from Jey Uso very soon.
It won't be a Backlash, because Backlash will be Sammy J and a tag match. But I do see Rollins winning the belt probably by Saturday Night's Main Event or Money in the Bank.
And Money in the Bank too. I mean, who knows who could get involved in that, because that person's not cashing it on Cena and winning. It's probably going to be another loss. I don't know. That's Raw. NXT, I don't have much that I think we should talk about. Noam Dar returned, and he won the Heritage Cup for the 4th time.
It's Noam's heritage at this point.
Yeah. They were teasing for a moment there that it was going to unified with the North American title. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe they go in that direction. Good. You can get rid of that belt. And then immediately afterward, Noam Dar shows up and beats Lexis King. And I'm like, never mind. Okay. I don't really love the idea about this going back on Noam Dar. I like Noam Dar, but at the same time, we've seen what he can do with the Heritage Cup. And I just don't think that there's really anything to be like looking forward to with that, because who is he going to have matches with going forward? They're just going to do either the British rounds thing, or it's going to be defending it the way that the Alexis King things would have been, where it's just like a regular championship. And then I'm just waiting for the next person to win it. Like, Dar as champion, I don't think should be another 300 something day reign or 180 day reign or whatever. Kind of want them to just be like, all right, let's put the belt on Javon or Ethan Page, or, to be perfectly honest, just unify it anyway. But that's one of the few things that happened on there. And it's still even a title that like most people don't care about. No.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the idea of there being less for NXT's men's division, because that division is constantly in shambles. And I'm okay with Dar just having it. He's clearly very good with it. So I think it's better than having less.
You know, as less, the family. Because Luca Crucifino was just dead, killed off, I guess.
You know, I'm just going to be straight up here. Nobody on this podcast ever wishes for anybody to be released or ever wants to anything about that. But, like, if this is how you find out you're released, that sucks.
Like, now, so far, there hasn't been anything saying that he has been released, but it is a little suspicious that, like, they did the thing that they've done with other people where it's like, let's kill them off and then fire them afterward.
I think the money here is in a bait and switch, where you think Stax is the bad guy, but really some shady shit's up with Tony, and Stax is trying to help everybody.
I'd be cool with that.
I think that's the move.
I'd be very cool with that. And then they just like Stax is like, well, I came across all this like corruption or something, and then he leads the family, and Tony D either comes up to the main roster or something. I don't know, but yeah, I'd be down for that. Joe Hendry showed up again on this episode.
He sure did.
Seems like he's just going to feud with Trick Williams a little bit. Maybe have a match with Obafemi.
It begs the question: does Trick now show up this Sunday at TNA Rebellion, where Ethan Page is challenging for the TNA Championship? I'm I don't know. I think if you were gonna have Joe Hendry show up, he probably should have had a mini exhibition with Femi or something to make it seem worth it. He just kind of showed up, called Trick a bitch, and then left. You know, a little weird, a little flat to me.
I got nothing else as far as NXT.
Chase U is officially back. Yay!
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they did. They did have that. So they just, reverted back. It's retconned. It's here's the two new Chase U guys, and that's about it. But
it's the new class. Damn it.
Yeah. AEW Dynamite. I don't have much to talk about there. Master P was on for some reason. Jimmy Hayter.
They're in New Orleans, so they just decided to bring like a celebrity from the area in, and he was just there to do like just to introduce the ops. Like, I think that's fine. It's better than being the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah,
yes, it is.
You're not going to get a defense pro Travis Scott doing that stuff for me. I don't think that there's a whole lot of other stuff. That Jimmy Hayter moved on in the Owen Hart Cup, so we know the two matches that are going to be taking place in the or we know that that's going to be the finals. I mean, for Double or Nothing.
Yeah, that's the women's one. Her and Mercedes Moné. Also, the show was just just more like building up and more a focus on like in-ring action, like the Bucks against Kevin Knight and Speedball, Mike Bailey.
Yeah.
That was a like super fun tag team match. Just to show that like the Bucks, when you just put them in the ring, just are great still. And then there was also Josh Alexander got a big win. Well, his first kind of real victory over Brody King in the tag match with like Takeshita and Will Ospreay involved as well. And they're continuing to set up this, like, because we had been mentioned on Collision, was probably like the biggest storyline is the Don Callis family expanded with Trent Beretta coming back and Rocky Romero joining the faction as well.
Smark makes them the tag team instead of making Beretta singles.
Yeah, so it's just like it's Roppongi Vice as a heel act now as part of the group. So they're now up to, that's like 7 people in the faction now. Obviously with Brian KJ injured, he's not involved at the moment, but yeah, they're building up to be quite a force now. Yeah, other than that, there's just more of MJF's managed to get Shelton Benjamin's approval, but he still needs to get Bobby Lashley, which I presume will just be he's going to have a match with Bobby Lashley at Double or Nothing.
What is the payoff in your mind for this?
I don't know, but I'm willing to let them take me for the ride.
Fair enough.
Like, I think it's. I think the segment's been pretty fun. This feels like more old school MJF, and I think that's made it a bit more entertaining. And yeah, I have absolutely no idea where this could potentially be leading, but I have had more faith in the booking of AEW recently that I'm willing to just let it play out and see what they decide to do with it.
I'm not loving it.
Yeah,
it's interesting, but at the same time, it feels very much like a lot of things that are happening both in WWE and AEW right now, where I think a lot of people are just sort of like, let's really just kind of hit the same beats week in and week out and tell a story that has really only like a beginning and an end, and the middle is waiting, because this is, I think, the 3rd week in a row where it's, hey, Bobby, how about thumbs up? But next week. And like, they haven't, for my taste, like advanced the story where it's like, oh, Bobby gave him a thumbs in the middle and then he screwed something up. So now he went, no, never mind. Now you're back down. Or like, well, he gave him a thumbs up, but in the process, he had to piss off Shelton, and now Shelton's the downside. Like, it's just one thing that just keeps repeating, and yeah, maybe it's going to lead to something that's going to be worth it, but I am at kind of like, all right, just show me what they're going to do at the end, and I want to skip it, you know. And the MJF's just like bouncing around and all. And this all started because he was feuding with Jeff Jarrett of all people, who like Jeff Jarrett wanted to fight for the world title, and it was like 3 weeks later.
I think people are going back to this way too much. Like they clearly decided they were going to do so with Jeff Jarrett, but then saw the negative reaction to the whole idea about him challenging for the world title and decided to just deviate away from it. I think people were just relitigating that too much. They thought they were going to go one way, saw that it wasn't very well received, and decided to go against it and move in a different direction, which, you know, is fine to do if you do it early enough.
And then he's like still feuding with Hangman, and like
we're still having backstage interactions. So yeah, like MJF's whole shtick is like he doesn't need to work hard to get opportunities, and so he's like having to go at Hangman for just still pushing his way through the Owen Hart Cup. I don't think that they should continue to have interactions the same way that Swerve and Hangman should still have interactions and be somewhat in the background involved with each other while they're still doing other things in the meantime. Just means that it'll mean slightly more when they have another match down the road. So
if it all leads somewhere, then it'll be worth it. If it's just a thing because it's like filling time, then eventually it's going to be, well, why did you set this up and it went nowhere? Same as anything else. Same as even like the Rock thing. Like people are, you know, complaining about why wasn't the Rock at WrestleMania? Technically speaking, you could have done the exact same turn for John Cena and the Rock couldn't have been involved, and it would have been the same thing for the most part. And I don't know, when it gets to like the bouncing around that's happening quite a bit in AEW right now, where now it's like the Young Bucks are involved with Death Riders, and you guys getting the same kind of impression that I'm getting, where it's like, are we setting up another Blood and Guts thing of just like a combo of Death Riders and Elite?
Yes.
Yeah, this is around about the time they do that sort of stuff.
It's just Blood and Guts season.
It's usually around like July, right?
It's between May and July.
I imagine it will sit somewhere between probably All In and Forbidden Door this year.
Because that would be like,
They're going to do the Stadium Stampede first, and then they're going to do Blood and Guts.
Depending on like the injury stuff, because Pac's going to be out for a while, right?
I don't know what the nature of the injury was, so I can't.
I heard like 4 months.
Yeah, which is obviously like that's a shame. I imagine that they potentially might bring someone in to the Death Riders to compensate for that loss.
Could be.
Well, actually, I know who they probably bring into the Death Riders. Or
Go
just
on.
Have a strong prediction. Oh, Hook.
The ops is taken care of.
Yeah, well, I'd say the whole storyline of him getting injured is like maybe they did injure him, but then he's going to decide to join them instead. That's going to be the end. That's going to be the end of the Double or Nothing match between Joe and Moxley. Is going to be Hook's going to turn on Joe.
It's not Double or Nothing. It's Beat Brick.
Okay, whatever show it's on, then that's going to be that's when Hook comes back and costs Samoa Joe.
It's usually 5 people at Blood and Guts, right? Per team.
Yeah, it'll be 5 and 5 usually.
So Death Riders have Mox, Claudio, whether or not Pac is involved, Wheeler. So it's 4 or 3, and then I guess the Young Bucks, if you wanted to do the 3 of them, the 2 of them. But then that doesn't include Okada. But then that would be 6.
Well, I could see some sort of weird thing where they decide to it's like a mixed thing. We could do, if you do add like Hook into the mix, or if Pac is back and you can do the 4 guys and Marina Shafir, and you put Willow on the babyface too.
I'd be open to that.
Because as I say, they've not shied away from those two taking bumps from the guys. Like Mox hit the paradigm shift on Willow. Marina's taken like spears, and Swerve getting hit by Swerve as well. So they do that stuff. So it wouldn't be completely out of the question if they're just involved in the match as well.
What else we got on there? Any other? Nothing else that I can think of that happened on there. So then that just brings us to the predictions for SmackDown tonight, which tonight we're going to get the return of Aleister Black. And popped in my mind too every single time. John Cena is going to be there. It seems like they're finally now adding some stuff more to the card, even though it's 6 o'clock. Took them long enough. That Zelina Vega is going to have that Women's United States Championship match against Chelsea Green. She's not going to win. It's pretty obvious that she's not going to win the title. Be very shocked. We'll put it that way. I'd be very shocked if she won. And there's that TLC match for the WWE Tag Team titles between the Street Profits, DIY, and Motor City Machine Guns. Cena's promo, I think we all know that it's basically going to be the same sort of thing. I think
it's 26 dates.
That's insane. That's so little. It's not at all surprising, but it is insane that that's how they're, I thought he was going to work at least a little bit more. I don't really know who I would put up against Aleister Black, but the more that I had thought about it, the more I thought maybe Shinsuke would be the best opponent. He's not doing anything right now. They could have a good match. And then I think that overall that the Street Profits are probably going to retain the tag titles.
I like the idea of just having Aleister Black fight a local. Like, literally, you don't have to sacrifice anybody on the roster. Get a local, get some guy from the Performance Center that nobody's ever seen. Let him get kicked in the head. 1, 2, 3. It's Aleister Black. That's what he did best. As far as the tag match, before Callum mentioned something, I was thinking, hey, what if we just throw Fraxium in here? Like, and they just debut as a main roster tag team like that? Because that would be fun, They're more than accomplished. They can do it. And as far as I think there's a chance Chelsea loses. I wouldn't want to see it. But they keep going back to the well with Vega, so I see maybe there's a chance it happens.
I think Chelsea will retain because you can't have her drop the title to Zelina Vega at least until they've had about 4 or 5 matches for the United States title, because that's kind of the Mia Yim approach of things. Because they only have like 5 women on the roster that can challenge Chelsea, so they need to stretch out every single feud that she has to at least 5, 6, 7 matches. I think the Street Profits will probably retain because I don't see the other 2 teams going on a reign with the title right now, unless they're just doing a lot of hot potato with the title, which, to be fair, I'd be completely down for. I think it's fine if they have a strong enough tag team division on SmackDown. They could just be trading the titles back and forth, similar to how, like, in the 2000s, you'd be swapping the title pretty regularly between the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardy Boys. And the John Cena thing, he'll just, will do a "You People" promo on the fans, address Randy Orton, and then potentially get RKO'd again.
Oh, Randy, they're going to set up the match. At the very least, this will say they're fighting at Backlash.
Woo.
I think that the thing that they're supposed to be building this as is "one last time" is like the tagline that they're going with. Which, I mean, if 26 days is all he's got left, like, they're not going to have any more matches between those two, yeah.
One last time is already like 3 times too many.
And there have been more once in a lifetime matches, and they could always go back on it, but
I mean, as I understand why people do it just for like the overall nostalgia trip, but realistically, these guys haven't had a good match with each other for 16 years.
But you know what's even crazier is they haven't had a match with each other in like 10. So
2017 was the last match. Yeah, they had.
Yeah,
and that was
so
on a
like
house show anyway.
you can run it back. I think it'll be okay, and hopefully they never had good matches, so hopefully it just, as long as it scratches the itch, I think it does its job.
Like, just based on the I know obviously a lot of that was built around the finish, but the overall negative reaction to the match, the main event match in general, and in particular Cena's performance that I've seen from the people that I like listen to for their thoughts on when they're watching stuff that I'm not watching. I've doing that with Cody, who is a great wrestler right now, and then doing that to Randy Orton, who is a great wrestling mind, but is, in his mid-40s now with a very seriously injured shoulder and back. Well, I'd say not injured, but like brittle, let's put it that way. Against this version of John Cena, I don't know how it can be better than the Cody match, and that match wasn't very good. So, I wouldn't put up too much hopes for the in-ring department of this Cena title, right?
Me neither. But we'll see. Anything else that happens, and of course, we're gonna know what everybody else has in mind. Drop your comments below. Tell us what you think is going to happen tonight. Tell us what you thought about all these other topics that we broke down on this whopping 2.5 hour episode. It's kind of makes up for the lack of a different main event for this week. But we, of course, will talk about anything that happens over the next few days on the next episode of the Hot Tags, episode number 700 of the Hot Tags. That's insane.
Yeah.
I got nothing in mind about doing anything particularly special for it, but if anybody has any ideas, then drop them in the comments below as well. Make sure, of course, that you are following us on all the different things that we always promote, including fanboysanonymous.com, checking out the Discord server, all this marketplace stuff, and, of course, the link tree at anthonymango.com or amangotree.com for all of my stuff. You can find that there, but also follow Robin Callum.
Yeah, join us next Friday for what we believe will be us pissing on the grave of Skype. But outside of that...
Yeah, I forgot that was going away. I'm just like, yeah, Discord's great. Then fuck you, Skype.
Discord's phenomenal. Yeah, see? So it's already begun. Other than that, you can follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, all the socials, @DudeFelice. I am like 98% close to having both a bedroom and, for the first time ever, an office. So maybe Twitch comes back. Who knows? Other than that, my Linktree also has other stuff, including a little Cash App link in case you want to help me get a Nintendo Switch too, like my buddy Callum Wiggins. What you got for him?
Got a Switch with Mario Kart World included. You won't be seeing any of that. I don't have a Twitch, and no, I wouldn't be able to. I don't think I'd be able to stream on. I wouldn't know how to set up a Switch to stream anyway. It's not as simple as just my PS5 does it quite easily if I wanted to. But you won't be seeing any of that stuff. You can see. Well, I probably don't. I don't post at all on Twitter or Blue Sky either. But you can follow me on either of those things. In the once in a 4-month period, I decide to put something out on there. You can be sure you're the first to see that random tweet that goes out there. Then you can also check out the power rankings this Saturday, which will be very WrestleMania coated. So I expect to see guys like John Cena and Io Sky and Seth Rollins high up on the rankings there. And yeah, until the Fantasy League comes back, you won't be able to check out the Fantasy League stuff, but check out the last year's ones, just see the final standings, check out all the tables and spreadsheet that was up there as well. Just check out one last time before we bring back the next year's season, going straight into 25, 26, starting up very soon.
As we said, we'll probably do some kind of a live draft sometime next week or so, maybe next Wednesday. We'll try to figure that out in the meantime. So get your email alerts set up for that if you want to tune in for that. If not, obviously listen to it after the fact. And I will probably do something related to WrestleMania 42 over the course of the next few days or so, whether that's like another dark cast instead of an actual separate main event or something. I don't know. I got some ideas I'm kind of playing around with. So you'll find out when it's up. And I'll see you then, and everybody else will as well. So adios for now. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.